Let's party.
Hello and welcome to the Party Loaded podcast for episode 237 on God knows what day it is now. We've hit December. It's the 21st of December on a Monday night, no less, doing something a little bit different to usual. Welcome to the show. My name's Luke Retallick. Joining me tonight, we have the full team, of course. We have Adrian Chia, Matt the Game Dad Diet, and Christian Paulson Brown. Hey, gents. What's going on? Hello. So,
hi.
Little bit of a big one tonight, or big bit of a little one tonight. However you want to phrase it.
Little bit of a big one.
It's your average episode, you know.
Yeah, that's it. That is absolutely it. So, I'm assuming that everybody who's listening tonight got the memo. If you haven't, welcome to our final show ever. So, hopefully you got the memo. Otherwise, that I imagine might come as a little bit of a shock.
By the end of the episode, only one of us will be left alive.
That's right. We're going to battle royale this bitch.
Yep.
If you're just tuning in for the first time, you've missed everything. So good on you.
Yeah. All of the in jokes are just not going to make any sense to you whatsoever tonight, for better or for worse. You know, that's all how it's going to work. Where are we dropping, boys? That's what I want to know.
Where are we dropping? I'm not thinking where I'm dropping. Like this is like a free for all. Apparently, only one of us is leaving alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I intend on that being me.
Yeah.
So
Can I die first? I just want to get that out of the way, like really quickly.
Somebody's got bets on Matt already. I don't know if that's bets to go out
Dylan.
first or bets
Dylan's got
to
bets on me.
Yeah.
bet to go out first.
I also
that
have
sounds
bets
right.
on me. So I will need you to take a fall. I'll split the funds though with your families.
Yeah. Really, this entire activity was just a giant like money laundering embezzlement.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
This entire podcast was a giant money laundering
We successfully laundered 20 cents over the course of the entire podcast.
And even that, we have to split 4 ways.
If that was truly the purpose of the last 5 years, boy, did we fuck that up.
No, it'll be 3 out of 4 of us will die, and then the scene will cut to like a cafe in like Italy, and we'll be like sitting at a table, and the other 3 will like look across the street and we'll be wearing like a hat and sunglasses, raise a cup of tea.
Like the final scene of the last Nolan Batman movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Fade to black.
Yeah. Nice. Alfred Pennyworth in the background for no apparent reason related to our show whatsoever. Just nut. Yeah. Adrian, did you say you picked out some significance about the episode number and what we're finishing on, episode 237?
Oh, he was breaking it down. It was actually quite impressive.
I can't recount it because I was making it up as I went along, but
yeah,
it ended up being that we're all pornographic cam models. Is really the crux of it all.
That is where it went. Yeah.
That is literally how it ended.
That's it. We have had
Luke stepped away for 1 minute and I wrapped it up.
Which is why we're ending this episode stripping and getting the account banned.
I don't know about wrapping it up so much as pinching it off, but sure, that's probably where we're ending. Yeah.
Happened if I showed my genitals. I wonder.
Bad things IRL, not to mention the show. So let's not end on that note, please.
Yes.
We had enough.
That's how the remainder of you die. That's how the 3 of you died.
Oh, we had genitals plus food analogies last week that I'm keen to steer away from for our last show, but you know, let's just say
We've already done it.
You've ticked the box. We don't need to do it again. That's where we're going to leave it. Yeah,
we'll see.
We've got enough of a mess of other things to talk about tonight. So tonight on the agenda, we have, of course, part 2 of our party favourites of 2020. So our spin-on Game of the Year and the various different forms of that. Of course, we've got a lot of Game Awards stuff to talk about because that happened during the week. But that's pretty much leaving out the thing we're going to kick off tonight, which is like the biggest thing of the year so far. Besides Adrian asking a question. What's going on?
I just want to clarify, if this is our party favourites episode, which lolly out of the Allen's party favourites bag are we?
Ooh, that's a
Race car.
Sorry?
Race car.
Race car. Interesting choice. Matt?
Yeah.
Party favourites. That's the one with like the picnic and everything in it, isn't it?
No.
Look, it's category favourites.
that's Cadbury favourites.
Adrian's thinking of party mix or
party
retro
mix.
or retro party mix.
Right.
Yeah. Like your Allen's,
right.
you know, with your milk bottle and your
Teeth.
the teeth. I think I might be the mint flavored teeth because there's something obscene about eating a pair of teeth.
I'm
like
literally
teeth on teeth
Googling it
action.
right now.
The teeth are the worst because
flavored.
their flavor goes against every other flavor in that bag. It's totally out on its own. Ugh.
It's bizarre. It's a bizarre phenomenon that every time I eat them, I was like, this is void like.
The honey bears are the one. I don't like the honey bears.
Honey bears.
You know, little yellow honey bears.
What party mix are you eating?
I think that's retro party mix.
I'm
Look on
100%
your
those
face.
fucking pineapples.
Yeah.
The pineapple thing.
Pineapples are good.
a good choice.
Yeah. I'm a party mix fucking fiend. If you put a bag of that shit in front of me, it will disappear. I will inhale it. It is one of my biggest vices when it comes to candy. So I'll eat literally anything, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with the lolly bananas. Like, can't beat the classic.
Oh yeah, the bananas.
Oh, the bananas.
They're not in them anymore though. That's the problem.
What?
They took them out of the party
The
mix.
retro.
Yeah. Oh, are they in the retro one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I'm not certain of that. That's a bold-faced lie.
You can't just yell retro at me and then force me to believe you.
I was just wanting to make a case for why the retro one is superior, and I jumped on that too early.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing we're ending things tonight then.
Yeah.
Just fucking ruined it. Scorching all the bridges, salting the earth already. Yeah.
Sorry for that segue, but it's the last show. So
Look, I think it's the only time you're going to get it in there, so you might as well. All right. Well, we got a couple of people jumping into chat, so let's get the show underway proper. Let's talk Cyberpunk, because that's pretty much the only thing besides Destiny that we've all played this week, and there's probably heaps to talk about. So it kind of feels like in a lot of ways the whole year has been building up to this point, and in a lot of ways, I feel like the last week of discourse on Cyberpunk in particular has kind of matched the year that was 2020 in a lot of ways.
it really is a weird allegory for 2020. Like, it's strange. Yeah.
So how do we begin? Do we begin with our? Do you think we should just talk about our personal opinions on it first?
Well, let's do a quick sort of group check as to how much we've played so far, like roughly, if we had to take a guess.
I've done about 30 to 40 hours, I think, was the last time I checked.
Okay. I suspect I'm probably going to be the smallest out of all of us, I think.
I've done 30 to 40.
Okay.
It's probably around the same.
I'm about
Too much.
15, I think.
I think I've seen on Steam, Matt, you've played like 120 or something.
No, that's not accurate. So,
you leave it on?
No. So the thing is that on multiple occasions, I shut Cyberpunk down, but the process was still running, and it was still registering on Steam as running. So I think I've put in about 50 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Luke?
I think about 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it's interesting that of those 30 to 40 hours, probably a good 5 hours of mine is not even playing the game. It's just tweaking settings and running around in a small area of the city to get my settings.
Adrian did message me quite a lot in a mad fever about his settings and optimization. And
well, you guys are running
getting
similar rigs at the moment, aren't you? So that would make sense. Yeah. So we're all playing on PC, to be clear. I don't think any of us on console. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, we're not barbarians.
All on PC, yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't know if being barbarians would be the moniker for it, but we're certainly not suffering through some of the shit that we've read about this week, given that we're all on PC. So, fortunately, yeah. I don't know, like.
It's shit. I'm just gonna say, I'm just getting it out there. Let's just get to the point. It's not good. Cyberpunk's not good. At least I'm not a fan. I think it's shit.
I guess the two questions that I'd like us all to kind of answer tonight are like, what level of enjoyment are you getting from it, and how flawed do you think it is? Because I think we can all agree to some extent that like there's some big flaws in there, but like how bad is
none
it?
And very.
Yeah.
Little to no enjoyment and very flawed, in my opinion.
Which is kind of funny, given how many more hours you've put into it than.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. I'm just going to get into it. I think Cyberpunk is a very pretty game, and I think that's its greatest. That's the greatest weapon in its belt. I think that like even after the amount of umming and ahhing and fiddling that I did, ultimately most of the fiddling I did was actually just to do with ray tracing and having it on or off. Without ray tracing on, the game ran pretty much between 70 to 80 frames in pretty much every area. So I was getting a really great experience visually without ray tracing on. So a lot of that time of me umming and ahhing and fiddling with settings was trying to get it to stay above 60 frames with ray tracing. In the end, I gave up on that because it didn't matter what I did, I couldn't get it to do that. And it took a while for me to convince myself that I didn't need to have ray tracing on to enjoy the game. Mm-hmm. But I quickly discovered that I didn't enjoy the minute-to-minute gameplay of Cyberpunk, and I found that it boiled down to, I thought about this a lot and tried to work out what the main issues for me are. And I think it's two main issues. The first one is that I feel like the systems are undercooked and that I wasn't getting the experience I thought I was going to be getting. And I thought that there would be far more immersion in the choices you made and that they would have significant outcomes and that they would affect the world around you as you went. And that basically never happened. And the second bigger issue I found was to do with the stealth and the hacking side of the game, where a good 2/5 of all your skills are to do with being stealthy and manipulative and hacky and techie, but none of those skills are interesting or serve any point in the game. And I think ultimately it's like when you play Dishonored or a game where it's about being stealthy and espionage. The game makes you feel like that's how you should be playing it. It doesn't it presents choice, but ultimately, if you're not doing it that way, you're doing it suboptimally. And I think most gamers would agree that when presented with the choice to do something suboptimally or optimally, you will always choose to do it optimally. And in a game with stealth, you're always pressured into doing stealth, because stealth nets you the most rewards. The problem with Cyberpunk is that it presses you into being stealthy, but doesn't ever reward you for being stealthy. So on one side, you're being pressured to be stealthy, but then when you are, you get nothing out of it except the badge of honor saying that I did that combat non-lethally or never being spotted. But as far as I've played in those 30, 40 hours, I have never seen a benefit of being stealthy. And that just makes me feel cheated, because I put a lot of points into those skills that really didn't net me anything. And the last biggest gripe I have, and it's in my mind, it makes the game not worth playing, is that out of all your skills, of which there are too many, and it floods you with, they are all, apart from very, very few, they are all just do this X% better, do this a little bit better, here's a percentage increase to this, do this a little bit better. Nothing is interesting apart from a very few handful of things like the mantis blades and the gorilla arms. I was expecting for a game to be about Cyberpunk to have interesting, cool powers and things that you can do, I don't know, send out a cloud of nanites and detach your wrist and attack, use a grappling hook or something. But it's all just oh, you can walk a little bit faster when you sneak. Who gives a shit? Oh, you're doing a little bit more percentage. Oh, you can reload your gun while you're running. Even that is on the better side of some of the trash skills that the game offers.
One of the analogies that I heard with regards to the hacking, which I think kind of matches what you're saying quite well, is that someone described the hacking to me as almost like a magic system in any other game. It's like your RAM is your mana, and your different hacks, like your quick hacks, are your spell slots.
Yeah, except it's all fucking boring.
I was talking about this with Adrian. We were talking about it as a magic system, and in most games. Yeah, if you in most games with a magic system, that's a full alternative to combat, right? If you're a mage, then you can go in there and you can shoot a fireball at somebody and slow somebody and do an AoE effect. And there are quick hacks in the game that do damage and but it's never it's never enough to make you feel powerful. And that's why I think that a lot of it does go into the stealth section. A lot of the quick hacks do seem to emphasize stealth, and they're not really a full combat alternative. In some ways they are, but not as much as Adrian or myself would like.
Yeah, and maybe I've been spoiled because I felt like having played Dishonored not long ago. I feel like that is like a really good synergy between being stealthy, being rewarded for stealth, and also having this like magic system that is basically the equivalent of hacking, except you can do far more with it, and it's a far more interesting and fun toolkit. When all hacking does is hide behind some barrels, like turn the camera off, make that guy blind. All it does is make you better at not being spotted. Like it doesn't like you can't like you can zap someone with like you can overload their brain, but all that does is a little bit of electrical damage. It doesn't do anything interesting. It just makes the NPC go like who gives a shit about that? You know, nothing grabs you for such a poppy, colourful setting. The minute-to-minute gameplay is just boring as shit, and that, in a nutshell, is why I have not enjoyed Cyberpunk.
I disagree and agree with Adrian's points in certain ways. For me, the game is definitely disappointing, but that doesn't mean that it's bad or I'm not enjoying it. So I think that there are a lot of features that it wasn't just people's expectations and people's imagination of what this game could have been. There were features that were shown and talked about by the developers as being in the game, going back to like the 2018 sort of gameplay reveal trailer, that are not in the game. You can look it up on a bunch of sites. There's a long list of stuff that was advertised as being in the game that's not in the game. So it's disappointing that there's all that stuff that's missing. And a lot of that's to do with customization and decision-making choices, impact, and like joining a gang, having a certain style to your character, getting different tattoos, customization, like customizing your apartment, or like a lot of little things like that are missing from the game. Customizing your weapons, like beyond just a simple scope and a silencer, like there was a more in-depth customization system. So that it is definitely disappointing that there's a lot of that's missing for me. But I do enjoy the gameplay. And even though it is disappointing, I still do enjoy it. I still do. I do stuff by stealth, not just because it is less rewarding than going in guns blazing, but I guess I am immersed enough in the world or in the narrative in a way that I still do it because it feels right to do. So if I'm with a character who's saying like, you know, we got to go in quiet and get this done and then get out without being detected, I'll feel like I have an obligation to that character to do that, because that's kind of what the story is pushing me to do. And I find that I do find that rewarding narratively. I really, really like the quests in the game. I like a lot of the characters. I like that a lot of the quests unfold in a lot more layers than I thought, where at first, because the game throws so many quests at you at the start.
Oh, it really?
I was so overwhelmed.
So many.
Yeah, I was so overwhelmed, and like everything felt like disparate and disconnected, and I was like, I don't even know where to start. But eventually, I could figure out, okay, I can ignore all these ones, and then these are the quests that are focusing on these particular characters. And once I chose to focus on a certain area or a certain character, I found that there was a very enjoyable chain of quests that followed along with that character. And so I'm enjoying the story. I'm enjoying the quests. The city is gorgeous. I do love the city. Like, criticisms about the AI aside, and how, you know, there are in some ways it is a bit of a paper standy, you know, in some respects, it still looks gorgeous and it is very immersive. And so overall, I am enjoying the game. I'm basically, I have a lot of criticisms when I'm not playing the game. I can think very negatively about it. I can think about all the stuff that I wish was in the game, and I can criticize it. But when I'm actually playing the game, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I came in with very low expectations, and I think that has been to my benefit, because I don't think it's unfair to say that Cyberpunk's actually kind of blown me out of the water in terms of how much I am actually enjoying it. Because it's interesting hearing Adrian talking about, like, you know, the hacking, there's no rewards for it and everything, because I'm playing like a full-on specced out netrunner sneaky character. And yes, early on the hacking sucks. It is really garbage. But I was playing a mission earlier on today where I was sneaking into some military base, and I got given the objective: don't kill any of the Miltech officers in the area. And I completed that objective, knocked out every single Miltech officer without stepping foot in the camp at all or firing a bullet. And that is deeply satisfying. Like jumping around from camera to camera and zapping people and instantaneously knocking them out, or firing off a contagion that spreads to like 6 different Miltech officers and they all just collapse.
I have heard that the contagion stuff is a bit OP once you get it going.
Yeah, it's so satisfying, but you do have to lean into the spec. So there's certain things like in the intelligence tree that give you like from stealth damage for your hacks is actually increased when enemies are unaware of your presence. And that is incredibly good. But I do agree that all of the abilities do kind of stand out as like, oh cool, like a damage boost, right? Like especially under the reflex trees where you've got all the weapon abilities, and it's like I don't give a shit about reload speed. Like I'm not min-maxing my character so much that I care about an extra 10% reload. It's not worth putting 3 points in that. And then meanwhile, in the stealth tree, there's actively abilities that are detrimental. So there's one for throwing knives. If you're watching this or listening to this, don't pick up the throwing knives ability because it destroys knives. So when you put points into that ability, it gives you the ability to actually turn your knives into throwing knives. But when you throw them at enemies, that's it. The knife is destroyed.
Ooh, okay.
And you can't retrieve them. It's really stupid. It's such a like. I agree with Adrian that a lot of the abilities are half baked because that is just dumb. You can get a knife, put a whole bunch of mods onto it, and then throw it at somebody's head and never get it back.
Like a legendary level 15 knife with 4 mods on it, and it's gone.
Yeah, it's just gone with a single like. It's like
and then you miss.
or you miss exactly. Imagine an ability in the reflex tree where it's like your handguns do explosive round damage. It's like, oh, sweet, that sounds awesome. You pick it up, and then you shoot your handgun explodes, but the guy you were shooting at's dead. Like, that's exactly what it kind of feels like. A lot of the game, like, it reminds me so much of Borderlands, and like, it's not really Cyberpunk. It's like neon Fallout. Like,
it's very Fallout.
Yeah, like
I think there's a lot more punk than Cyber. I think.
No, I would disagree. I'd say there's a lot more Cyber than there is punk. Like, the world is all digital and everything like that, but nothing about it is punk. Because like Cyberpunk typically is very much like anti-corporate, whereas here, like, no matter what you do, your V isn't anti-corporate. They're kind of like, oh, but we kind of need them, you know? And that's on purpose, to kind of like balance out the whole conversation with Johnny Silverhand. Like, whenever you talk with him, like, he's the anti-capitalist guy.
Yeah, the terrorist
is a blank slate, right? Like he's constantly framed as terrorist. Everything that he's done is like, your V is actively resistant to that, and that's kind of forced on you as a player. At no point can you go and say, oh, Johnny Silverhand, I just basically want to be like him, like, fuck the capitalist system. Like, it's not Cyberpunk at all. I've seen other people on Twitter call it neon liberal rather than Cyberpunk, which I kind of do see.
So that hasn't been my experience. I feel like my V is anti-corporate. Maybe it's as a street kid. There's a lot of the street kid dialogue is anti-corporate.
Matt and I both chose corpo for our beginning background.
Yeah,
so that might have played.
But like there is a degree of that. But even in like, because you've got dialogue options that aren't corpo, and even in those dialogue options, I've kind of found that V. I can see why, because it's a blank slate thing. And you were kind of talking about this problem on Twitter as well, Christian, where it's like you can't really make your V exactly into the character you want them to be.
No, totally. I feel like V has somewhat of a defined character, but I felt that defined character was anti-corporate, not pro-murder. So when the V is interacting with Johnny Silverhand, I find a lot of that is that Johnny Silverhand's a mass murderer, not that Johnny Silverhand's anti-corporate. That's where the tension comes from, in my perception.
Yeah, but, I could kind of see that. Yeah. But yeah, I was thinking a lot about it because it's the way that I can kind of describe it is it's like going to Disneyland and hopping on a roller coaster, and it's like a themed cyberpunk roller coaster, right? And Disney's fucked up the theme, like they've not really understood what cyberpunk is, and whoever's built it has kind of screwed up the track, and it's a bit rough in places, but it's still a roller coaster, and you still kind of step off it, going, "That was a good time," and I kind of want to hop back on, and do it again. But you can still go and say, like, fucking Disney, right? Like, they treated their workers like shit while they were working on this roller coaster, but it's still a fun ride. And I think that's where I'm kind of at with it at the moment, right? Like, I've gone through this in my head a lot because, I see a lot of my friends that are very, very much just shitting on Cyberpunk like every freaking day at the moment. And it's really tiring because, like, there are good things in the game worth discussing, right?
It's not black and white. It's not that it's trash or it's not.
It's not.
There's a lot of gray.
It's really not
in
black
between.
and white. Yeah. Like,
I just want to quickly say, like, I came on very strong, but I do agree with that sentiment ultimately because I have to identify that the parts that I haven't enjoyed about the game, I can completely understand that some people loving, like how everything is nuanced, percentages. I imagine there are some people out there that love that. I guess I have too short an attention span for Cyberpunk to have an effect on me. Like
you want picking different powers, like lots of new skills and lots of new powers to choose from.
Yeah.
Which I guess Cyberpunk, it doles out that a lot slower because the tech tree isn't about getting new powers. That's getting the cyberware, right? Getting the quick hacks. Yeah. And like I'm only at the point now where I'm starting to get some of the epic quick hacks, which are like the more exciting things. And then like knowing that there's legendary quick hacks too. So the further you get into the game, the more impressive hacks you end up getting.
There's also some quick hacks that you get access to later, which I won't spoil, but they're called ultimate quick hacks. And that's because they one-hit kill no matter what. Ooh. They're very expensive, but they one-hit kill. Or sometimes one-hit knockout in some cases. But they're freaking cool. They're cool as hell. One of them you have seen in trailers where you actually do get a quick hack that allows you to make enemies take their grenade and detonate it in their hand.
That's cool.
And so if they're standing in the middle of a group of other enemies and you make one of them do that, they all just get flatlined. And that is great fun. I really have enjoyed kind of the Netrunner gameplay and doing that stealthy. And even like I've been messing around with different guns, like trying out different guns. Some of them are really boring, but then I kind of landed on smart weapons, which are just stupidly fun. Like,
smart weapons are fun, but they are the only fun weapons.
Yes.
Like I've been disappointed with the weapon variety, where pretty much from 2 hours in, you know what all the different types of weapons are, and then it's just there's power, tech, and smart, and that's it.
Yeah, like I need to do a playthrough at some point where I do more with power weapons because they apparently have this ricochet ability, and I have no idea how to use it. Like, it's really unclear. Whereas like smart weapons are just like there's a legendary one. Is it legendary? The top tier one.
Yellow,
orangey thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Legendary.
Well, there's legendary, but then there's also iconic.
Yeah,
I think it's basically the Fifth Element gun, right?
It is. Yeah,
the
Fifth Element
gun.
Guns.
Yeah. But there's one that you can pick up.
Iconic guns are legendary guns, aren't they?
No, they're not.
No. Iconic guns can be blue or purple or orange, like that you can upgrade them.
Yeah.
Do you upgrade their color when you upgrade?
Yes.
You do. Okay.
Iconic weapons start at blue. I'm pretty sure. I think they all start at blue.
It depends. It depends on, like, some of them do start at purple. Like, I got one for the Corpo storyline that is actually iconic, and it was purple when I got it. Yeah. But there's one that I picked up, and that is a smart assault rifle that is stupidly fun. Where when you aim down sight with it, you know how with there's basically when you aim with a smart rifle, there's like this square in the center of the screen where anything within that will be hit. When you aim down sights with it, that square becomes a long rectangle that takes up almost the whole screen, and it hits everything within that square.
That sounds cool.
It's great fun. The only problem I have, and this kind of comes down to weapon modification, I wish I could silence smart weapons, because then I just use smart weapons all the time, because they're great fun to use. But yeah, like the gunplay, the fact that V has rollerblades for an arse, just like in Apex and everything, I love that. Like sliding behind cover and shotgunning people is just great fun. Yeah, no, I have found myself enjoying it a lot more than I kind of expected. So
this might be one of the first times where we've all kind of landed fairly similarly on a game, because I think I probably agree with all three of you for the most part. Like I kind of echo everything to a greater or lesser extent. I perhaps went in feeling more optimistic than Matt did. Like I was expecting issues, don't get me wrong, but I did expect it to be a game of CDPR sort of caliber, you know, because they do have a pedigree with regards to other releases and a certain sort of amount of quality that you've come to expect with the success of those. And I think that it's fair to say that this release has not lived up to those expectations.
That's weird though, because like it's only The Witcher 3 really.
It's only one game, yeah.
Like even like The Witcher 1 was jank as crap. The Witcher 2 released pretty jank as crap too.
Okay, two things on that, and yes, I do get that. Number one is that I came to The Witcher 3 late, so I missed all that. So for me, the game was a lot more polished than what people would have experienced on release by a mile. Secondly, my other big experience with CD Projekt Red is through the Gwent standalone game. And when that was initially released, that was actually quite a good sort of game and interface, I felt. It was fairly polished for what it was, especially considering, you know, its competitor at the time was Hearthstone by and large, and it matched up reasonably well to the quality of that interface. So so I get that that's a skewed perspective based on my lack of experience with some of their games at launch, but I've kind of been oscillating between massive disappointment to like euphoric enjoyment of different aspects, and sort of back and forth like a really heavy pendulum. It's been quite the ride, actually. Part of the reason why I've only played 15 hours is because I actively decided to put it down for a few days just to see if there was going to be another couple of patches incoming, and just give it a chance to sort of, you know, marinate a little bit while they, you know, do a little bit of work on it, and hopefully improve some of the standout things. Because my opening few hours with the game are kind of really telling in terms of that journey. Like I jumped in and like the intro corpo stuff that you get with V if you chose the corpo background is, you know, I actually liked the setting of the inside of the Arasaka building, like how bleak and kind of, you know, meat grindery it is from a sort of, you know, working in booths and, you know, corporate creed kind of perspective, and all of the backstabbing douchebaggery that's going on between the top elite and all that sort of stuff. I
didn't know you actually were Arasaka in the corpo. That's interesting.
Yeah. You start.
So you start off as a street kid. You said, Christian.
Yeah.
What were you doing, Adrian?
Street kid as well.
Street kid. Because I started up one because my next playthrough I want to do a nomad. Especially after having seen a whole bunch of the nomad story, they're actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
But comparing the nomad start and going through all the stuff up until you get like let loose with Jackie is garbage compared to the corpo start. It's really, really bad. Like you're on your own. It's kind of hinted that you've left your nomad clan and you meet Jackie on a job, and then after knowing you for 5 minutes, Jackie's basically treating you like you're his best friend and you should work together forever. And it's just like, what the fuck? Like, whereas the corpo does suggest like there's a lot of background with Jackie and the corpo rat that you're playing as.
Yeah.
Which I like. Like that feels like you have a lot more investment in the story.
You're probably Street Kid's more similar to Nomad by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
You basically
the corpo is great.
Street Kid, you get told to steal a car, and then when you go to steal the car, Jackie puts a gun in your face, and then like 5 seconds later, your buddies go into a party.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the corpo start, not to spoil too much, but it's basically like you're given a job that's incredibly dangerous, and you go to the one guy that you know that you can rely on because he saved your life once, and that's Jackie.
Right,
and so there's this really, really strong relationship between your character and Jackie right at the start of the game.
But the cool part of the relationship is he very much treats you as the friend who he knows is in a lifestyle that he doesn't agree with. And he kind of does give you a little bit of light shit about it in the way that you interact, which I think fits really well. Like, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Even like the thing that I really like playing as Corpo as well is the dynamic between your Corpo character and Johnny Silverhand, because like obviously you used to work for the guys that he tried to blow up, and it's really quite fun playing with that dynamic, because like you're motivated to get back at Arasaka just as much as Johnny is, but you both have very different methods, and it's fucking great. Like, it feels like Corpo, like they should have just like done away with Nomad and Street Kid and just had it the start be Corpo, I think. Based on my experience with Nomad so far. Like, it's pretty dull.
One thing I do want to shout out in general is that some of the named characters that you interact with a fair degree, I actually like a fuckload. I think they've done some really good character work on some of those. Like Jackie being a big standout. I think Jackie's awesome. I think Victor Vector, your Ripperdoc, is pretty fucking cool. I like him a lot. Evelyn, who's one of your contacts that you sort of meet fairly early on, I quite liked her. And what's the name of the tattoo chick that introduced you to breakdancing? Judy, yeah.
Judy's really cool. Yeah. There's a bunch of
Pan Am's the best.
Pan Am is fucking great. I love Pan Am.
I finished Pan Am's story today. She's primo.
Finished or
finished. Okay, finished her. Yeah. I got the trophy for like finished Pan Am story.
Yeah.
Yes, so and Johnny Silverhand is awesome as well. Like, I think that Keanu is a bit sort of, Keanu's acting kind of shines through in a way that there are some roles in his career. As much as you love Keanu, there's some roles in his career where like the minimum amount of speaking parts that he's been given are probably appropriate. Like he sometimes is a little bit sort of stilted in the way that he portrays himself, and he's not the most emotive of actors in some of those roles. Like, Neo being a classic example from the Matrix movies. I think that's a good kind of match for it. I think he shines more as Johnny Silverhand than some a lot of that past work, even though it's a little bit weird at times.
Well, what I like a lot about Johnny Silverhand is at first I did feel kind of burdened by having him around, but as the game goes on, like it spends a lot of time focusing on Johnny Silverhand as a person and as a character, and the way you see him changes and evolves, and like I really like the direction they go in with Johnny Silverhand. And I know that how you react to him also plays a big part in like where the ending sort of goes. I don't know any spoilers, but I've already seen that there is divergence in you get to get certain options based on how you've treated Johnny Silverhand, which is interesting. Yeah. Like Matt, no spoilers or anything, but have you done the drive-in with Rogue?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that. That was fantastic.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Like the whole chipping in quest line is great. I've been taking my time because I have been enjoying it enough that I want to get as close as possible to 100%ing a playthrough. Actually do all the side quests and such.
Oh, absolutely do all the side quests for sure. Yeah.
A lot of them actually play into the ending.
Totally.
And like a lot of them have just incredibly cool rewards. Like there's one with Delamain, who's like this AI taxi cab company.
I've just started doing this.
And that storyline fucking great. It's so good. I fucking love it. There's so many great characters. Like there's one Claire Russell, who like this is my issue with a lot of the conversation at the moment is that there's good things that the game does that don't get talked about because of all the bad things that the game does, right? Because the bad things kind of stay very, very surface level.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people rightfully complain about trans representation in the game. Like it's god awful. And then you meet Claire and she's a fucking badass and you only get hinted that she might be trans when you start doing races for her and you see that she's got a trans flag on her car and it doesn't come up until the end of her quest line. And it's great. Like it's actually a really cool moment because she's a badass character. I wish they did more with her. But yeah, like for all the bad stuff the game does there's also really good things that, like, I realized that all the characters that I really like are female. They're freaking, it's got a strong as hell female cast.
It does, it really does.
Totally.
Like, there's one single side character that's male that is kind of cool, basically. Like, outside of Jackie, like,
and Johnny,
Jackie's fucking cool.
Obviously,
and Johnny as well, yeah. But Johnny lives inside your head, so
it's a bit different, yeah. One thing I will say about some of the characters, though, like when you walk into a new area and you get contacted by sort of like the area boss that gives you sort of side missions and stuff like that, I think that it really breaks immersion when you walk into a new area and then someone calls you up that you've never like met before, and they're just like, "Hey, it's your boy Cyber Mike. If you want to do some jobs for me, I've heard that you're, heard that you're top level thug on the street."
I have a big problem with the way that they roll out quests to you and introduce new characters to you, because it is you drive into a new area and then all sorts of shit starts going off, and then it doesn't get categorized neatly enough in your jobs list. Like, I wish that the game would organize, like, it has a little icon for the area that the mission's from, but I wish it chunked off the missions like separately into the different areas so that you could focus on them. And I wish that the game talks so much about the gangs in the different areas, like your Maelstrom and your 6th Street, etc. But there's from what I've seen, there's no like gameplay effects of that. Like, there's no doing jobs for one gang and attacking another gang. Doesn't influence anything.
Pissing one gang off by allying with another sort of thing.
There's no like unique vendors for the different different gangs that you need to earn reputation with to get access to. Like, and a lot of that stuff about like your influence on Night City and your like place in Night City is a lot of the marketing behind the game. And I feel like that's a big letdown.
Yeah. You know what? I heard something recently, and then sure enough, it turned out to be true, and it's kind of helped contextualize a lot of the way that I feel about the game. Because I was playing around with it, and I'm like, God, this reminds me of GTA Online. Like, so much of it plays like GTA Online. And then it turns out that from the very start, they've actually planned for the game to have a multiplayer component.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, now that makes a lot of sense. Like, the way that the game world is built, the way that there's all of these different gangs and everything like that. Like, you can see the framework just sitting there for a GTA Online thing. It's just that, like, I was expecting like a Fallout or Skyrim level of interest with the side quests, but every single side quest, Johnny can turn up and has interesting things to say. Certain side quests unlock like the car that you see all the V screenshots of in the game art. That car is unlocked through a random ass side quest. Like, everything in the world is actually worth doing, and that is way more than I can say for any Fallout or Skyrim. Like those titles, I've never really cared about doing every single side quest. So.
If this does become a fully fledged multiplayer game at some point, I think that it will work very well as that, but they need to address all of the basic shit first. Like, they've got a lot of work to do.
The plan from the start was always, I think, like 2 years from now was when they planned to have this is a long-term thing. So they were always giving themselves 2 years before the multiplayer even comes out.
So they'll need that long to restore some of their rep at this point. But it'll be interesting. Can we talk about bugs for a sec? 'Cause I think this would be a fun discussion to have. Like, what's some of the weirdest fucking shit that you guys have seen, like, in terms of bugs? And while you're talking about this, I've got like a 10-minute sort of bug reel, which I'm just going to play on screen just for some funny shit that I found online. So, I had a lot of T-posing in the initial parts.
I'm
T-posing everywhere.
I'm so disappointed I haven't seen a single T-pose. I love T-poses. I love them.
In the very first club that I went in, there was a duplicate model of like an overweight female dressed in gold kind of clothing, and she was T-posing in 2 places in the bar for me, and one of them was in the middle of a couch, like just phasing through it. So, yeah.
Yep. The running bug that you're showing on the stream at the moment, I get that all the time.
Yeah.
Like that bug turns up constantly. One of my favorite ones was a T-posing bug, but it was V that was T-posing, and I was in first person while V was doing it, and so I couldn't see my gun on the screen because the gun was pointed off to the right somewhere. And whenever I was shooting, like the bullets were just flying forward from gun being pointed out to the right. It's fucking dumb.
Yeah, it's bizarre. There was that bug doing the rounds, which I think was more of an NVIDIA sort of driver issue, where like a whole bunch of assets got changed into tiny little trees or something. Someone was showing, I think Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg was showing some pictures of that. Like he walked into an alley and like there were just these tiny little trees dotted on the surface freaking everywhere. So I don't know what they would have been otherwise, but apparently the NVIDIA update that happened immediately after that fixed everything. So yeah, it's just...
I've had two very weird visual ones that were kind of fun. I had one where all the palm trees in the game turned to rubber and were
that's showing over the road. I think.
Yeah, that was on screen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep, exactly. So like they turned to rubber and they were just bending over the street like they were in gale force winds.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I had just yesterday. Oh god, the freaking pantsless one. The one I had earlier on today when I was playing was that the fucking world inceptioned on me. And there was a part of road that I was driving on that suddenly, like, I'm driving along and then I can see this empty piece of ground ahead of me because the road and the buildings attached to it are sideways on the sidewalk.
Oh wow!
So like you're driving past the street, just kind of being up.
Was there a loud whoa?
Yeah.
And then like those are interesting bugs that I've had very rarely. The ones that you see most commonly are like item duplication of like people like items that they're holding in their hands will get duplicated and they'll just kind of remain in the air.
Yeah, there's one with Jackie sort of eating using the chopsticks at the noodle bar, and like there's a pair of chopsticks that stay in the takeout container that he's got while he's actually using them to spoon it into his mouth.
That's the only visual bug I've seen are the floating objects. I haven't seen any other visual bugs. I've had one progression bug that hit me today that was really annoying, which is there's a mission where you need to interact with an NPC from really early in the game. And depending on how that first quest went with that NPC goes, they may or may not be alive. And then the game is supposed to have different instances where it, checks, are they alive? If so, present this different NPC, or if they're dead, it's a different NPC who stands in place.
Mm-hmm.
But the game just fails to do that check. And if they're dead, it tells you to go talk to them, but they're just not there. They just disappeared.
Yeah.
And then apparently that bug was only introduced in the latest patch because they were trying to fix another bug where there was a bug where that character that you need to talk to, there was a bug where they would keep following you after the mission had ended. And so what they seem to have done is they've gone, okay, when that first mission ends, just remove that character from the game so that they can't follow you around. We're just going to delete them from the game. And then they don't repopulate them back into the world when you're supposed to meet them later on.
I've seen a lot of that in general, like just general, like when you're looking at crowds, like some of the passers-by just suddenly just disappearing out of the game, like blinking out of existence, Avengers style. It's just
a lot like you see a lot of that can be like memory issues too. Like some of the most blatant ones you see, a lot of them come from the consoles where they are struggling with memory allocation. Like you see ones online where people like spin around and the NPCs disappear, or they spin around and the cars change into different cars. That's all happening on consoles because of memory issues.
Yeah.
Like so this is the thing where as a game dev, like it's very easy for me to look past a lot of these bugs because they're all visual and none of the ones that I've experienced have impacted on gameplay. I've had one single bug where it was like, okay, that's annoying, and I had to reset the game. And that was literally just that NPCs were talking, but I wasn't getting their audio. I could only ever hear V speak. I couldn't hear any NPCs.
Yeah.
So just a simple game restart and it was fine. But compare that against Watch Dogs Legion, where my save file got corrupted and was unplayable for over a month. And like, as annoying as these bugs are, credit where credit is due, there's none that I've experienced that are game breaking, right? Like they're all just annoying immersion breaking things, but nothing that's kind of broken the game outright. And I think like the game needed an extra year. Like it needed a whole extra year in development to fix all of these problems.
I don't know about a full year, but definitely another 3 to 6 months for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if we'll get a fix for a lot of these in 3 to 6 months. I say a full year because if they wanted to release on last gen consoles, it needed an extra year. Or just to not release them on not last gen consoles at all. If they hadn't released them last gen, they would have probably resolved a lot of their issues, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
which would have been ridiculous because the game was announced before the last generation of consoles were out. Yeah. It was announced when the PS3 was the main console.
But scope creep is a thing. I mean, they would have changed their scope in mind with that. So
100%.
And then you've got this double sort of issue that they couldn't have anticipated as much as it has affected people with the supply problems with the new generation consoles. So, a lot of people could be playing them on better consoles, but just can't because they can't get hold of a PS5 or an Xbox Series S and so on and so forth. The audio bugs that you were talking about, Matt, I've had a couple of them. There was one that really annoyed me where I was in a gunfight and my gun was completely silent. And I found it really hard to concentrate on what I was shooting at because I couldn't hear. I didn't have that feedback confirmation sort of with the audio. And then 30 seconds later, every shot that I'd fired played for me, like in the order that it played. So it was almost like there was a gunfight happening like out of time sync. The thing with all of this stuff is, yes, a lot of it's not game breaking, but the whole game builds itself on immersion. And it's one of the best 100%. Aspects that it should be building on. And all of this shit just breaks immersion every single time. You could be walking through the streets, really enjoying like the sort of cyberpunk aesthetic and the sort of the techie grime and all the characters you're interacting with. And you're like, this is fucking cool. I feel like I'm in Night City. And then all of a sudden, your immersion just snaps in an instant with something that is just ridiculous. So yeah.
I'm just going to take a leaf out of Adrian's book and be a golden god and say I'm not getting any of these bugs because I'm playing on a god machine. So.
Yeah, fair enough.
Even in my short stint, I had no bugs. I don't remember in the 30 to 40 hours that I've played. The only one, again, the same as Christian, like mobile phones floating next to people's heads where they've been left behind when they've moved their arms. That's literally the only bugs that I've encountered have been those. I haven't had any other bugs.
There's one other bug that I've noticed that's been mega consistent, but I've only noticed it when I've paid attention. Okay. And that's if you ever sneak up behind somebody and grapple them and then break their neck, you'll keep on hearing their neck breaking for like the next 5 minutes as you're sneaking.
Sounds awesome.
Actually, I know we're just talking about bugs for a long time now, but there is one other visual bug that has annoyed me, which is, I don't know if it's my settings or something, but when you're looking down a long road, if you look far enough away, the game will render like little traffic sprites, just like little like several pixel big traffic sprites in the distance. But no matter what road you're looking on or where it is, it'll always render that traffic. So you can be out in the middle of the desert looking down the road, and then there'll be like busy city traffic sprites in the distance, and they'll disappear once they get they're like ghosts, they'll just vanish. But it's the same level of traffic at the same distance in the city as in the desert, and that's inconsistently, I don't like it.
Yeah. The only one immersion breaking.
The only other one that I didn't like is I looked in the mirror and I was bald.
Yeah, if you're wearing a helmet for some reason, it sometimes it doesn't render the helmet, it makes you bald. Yeah.
I'm playing female V because the voice actress is vastly better than the male V character.
I looked in the mirror and I totally look like shit as well, but then I went and sat down and played Cyberpunk and things got better. So.
That's good, Luke. I like that kind of joke. I like the self-deprecating kind of joke. It's good.
The one thing that I have noticed is pretty consistent on male characters is that your dick shows through your pants all the time. Like you just haven't done your zipper up.
That's no different in real life, so that's okay.
Did you choose the big dick, Matt? Is this a big dick problem?
No, it's not. It's like the default size dick. Like will just show through your pants no matter what.
I was telling Christian I had an interesting interaction because the night that I sat down to play it, my wife was like sitting there, and there was this weird moment where like I had to construct my female V, and I was picking her proportions, and there's like a naked woman on my screen. So in order to like kill the awkwardness, I just included Shantae in the process and was like, "Hey, what size boobs should I give her? Or like, what should I?
Thank God. For a second there, I thought you were going to say to cure the awkwardness, I decided to just give her a dick. So,
and in the end, it was an interesting interaction because Shantae was mostly just confused because having not played any real like RPG games or know how they work, her question wasn't like, why is there a naked woman on your screen? It's like, why is this a thing? Like, why do video games have this?
Whereas if she understood the game a little bit more, her confusion might stem more so from the fact that there's about 12 different options for pubic hair designs, which they clearly put a lot more time and effort into than they did polishing some of the basic bugs in the game, or the fact that you're in first person for most of the game, so you're not even going to fucking see that shit for the most part.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The biggest, one of the big sins, I know I've talked very negative about it, but one thing that I cannot understand is why you can't change your appearance in the game.
Yeah.
What is going on with that?
I fully expect that's going to be something that's been cut, but will come back.
Even the most basic of RPG games let you change your appearance. Like, Pokemon lets you change your clothes. Like,
you change your clothes. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I meant appearance. Like,
there's guys running around the game world that have like recolored faceplate attachments that are like neon green and shit. And I'm just imagining players getting access to that on V, and that's fucking kick-ass. Like I would be totally down for that.
Have you guys met Lizzie Wizzy, the character voiced by Grimes? And she's like full golden android girl.
No, not yet.
I want stuff like that. I want to become fully metallic.
Isn't that one of the things with some of the hotel stuff? Like, there's one of the hotels that like all of their employees are fully gold.
In the Osaka building, the bartenders are gold.
Yeah. Like, I got thinking about the canonical sort of side effects of that. Like, what would happen if you ever got fired? Like, how would you be employable anywhere else if you totally golded yourself?
A lot of that's covered.
Yeah. I find that
repossess it.
Yeah. A lot of it's covered. A lot of it also delves into how having that degree of modifications affects a person. What
I would really like to see, which I think would be really cool, and again, I talked with Christian about this, is I'd really like to see a far more fleshed out gang allegiance sort of system in the game, where I really like the idea of in a playthrough you could, for example, ally yourself with 2 or 3 out of the 6 gangs, and that would lock out side quests from those other gangs.
Like how they do in Warframe, like the Warframe system, where you have to focus on reputation with half at a time. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, and then like you build reputation with those gangs, and that unlocks cosmetics and gear that you can only get from those gangs. Build a reputation with that gang leader. Like if you infiltrate Maelstrom, who are like the full cyborgy dudes, I want to be able to replace my face with like a lens, or like have full. I want my character to be represented by the gang that I choose to ally with, and I want that to have repercussions in the world. And again, talking with Christian about this the other night, this is like the most basic of RPG ideas, so it must be in there. It must be in the numinous of CD Projekt Red. Like, it must have been something they've thought of but just couldn't do in the amount of time they had. Like, it must have been on the cards, because I just don't see why they wouldn't put a system like that in when it's billing itself on immersion and like it's so gangy. The game is so much about gangs and reputation.
I hope that when they do sort of flesh out the multiplayer experience, that's something they're looking ahead to that. Like, I can understand them not making it part of V's character, because there's still going to be a certain direction they want to push V in for the sake of the narrative. But when it comes to multiplayer, that's a massive missed opportunity if they don't let people do that. Yeah,
fair enough.
I am kind of glad that they have focused. Well, no, actually, I'm not kind of. I'm very glad that they focused on just like, this is what V is like. This is what we kind of expect V to act within these kind of parameters, because it stops the game from pulling an Avengers, where it's like everything all at once right at the start, and then it's a worse game for it. Whereas the single player experience, aside from the bugs, has been great fun. And it makes me look forward to a multiplayer experience, because the single player experience has already been really, really solid. So when those extra customizations come out, fuck yeah, like, because every different gang has their own customizations. Like, you could go full corpo and then end out being the golden god that you want to be, Adrian. Like, that sounds kick-ass. I love that.
Right. It was real hard not to choose corpo for that reason. I remember saying it quickly. And in fact, the only reason I didn't is because I knew you two did. And I was like, damn it, that's really messing with my god complex.
Yeah. I am actually still really looking forward to playing my Nomad, if only because I do really like how the backgrounds change dialogue options. Like, I think that's really neat.
Talking a lot about the game has made me probably want to go back and play it a bit more.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I actually think that the more disappointing thing about the aspects of the game that we've kind of shat on a little bit by far is the general discourse around the game. Like, the general discourse around Cyberpunk has been way worse than like the worst parts of playing Cyberpunk, for sure.
And none of us are playing on consoles, right? Like, none of us, particularly the early consoles. Like, it goes without saying, it's a completely unacceptable product and a filthy like marketing deception that they pull in like blocking reviewers from being able to use their own footage.
As a launch, I actually can't think of a worse launch. Like, you look at your Anthems,
100%.
you look at your Marvel's Avengers, your No Man's Skies, your Fallout 76. I don't think that any of them are as bad as this has been. Like, I think that the image,
as far as reputation goes, I agree. Not as far as product goes, but as far as reputation goes, I agree. Yeah.
As far as mishandling of the marketing and the launch, I think that, I mean, No Man's Sky maybe comes close because there was some severe mismanagement around the messaging. With
that's the closest.
Yeah, but then it's bad.
No Man's Sky, I think there was a lot of forgiveness there because it's a small team, it's an indie studio, right?
100%.
And like, a lot of it was directed specifically at Sean Murray because it was Sean Murray that was doing a lot of lying when he was in interviews and such.
Well, I don't know if it's lying so much as like him having a bit of a Molyneux complex where he just like has a vision of what he expects to achieve.
That's still just because it's a well-intentioned positive thing. It's still a lie.
Yeah. You don't go out to interviews and say, oh yeah, the game's going to have all of these cool big ideas that I have, because you can't guarantee them. Like, it's a shitty thing to do. Like, no matter what, whether or not you were well intentioned. Whereas I think with Avengers was just a disappointment, right? Whereas Cyberpunk's not just a disappointment. It's got all the worst parts of being disappointing in the way that Avengers was disappointing, in addition to having the outright lying that No Man's Sky had.
And the studio culture bullshit and the trans representation sort of narrative around it and all that other stuff too. That being said, like, I think that part of the worst aspect of the narrative to me isn't so much like the marketing and the messaging mishandling. It's also the general public kind of discourse on this stuff. And it does remind me a lot of what we've dealt with in 2020 with regards to people, on both sides of the political spectrum and this, that, and the other. Like, it's the extremists at play. Like, it's all the people who are entering into that tribal bullshit argument where they're defending or sort of fighting against the game, where they actually don't necessarily have a dog in the race as far as being like a avid player of it or having enough experience to form like an educated opinion. There's definitely people who do that for sure, but there's too many who haven't and are just jumping on and bandwagoning for the sake of being part of the discourse. Like, even people that we know, Matt, like, were really dishing out bullshit on the game before it even launched, who, in my opinion, like, while some of the stuff that they were saying could ultimately turn out to be very, very true, having absolutely no first-hand experience to back up the stuff that they were saying, to me, just made them seem incredibly ignorant. So, and it was disappointing. Yeah.
No, I entirely agree. Like, a lot of the discourse has been, oh well, I've seen this from the outside, so it must be true. Which is like the trans representation thing is one of them, right? Like, we saw the in-game advertising and it's shit, but it's a parody of shit advertising, right? And then you have your one really cool trans character, which nobody's talking about. Like, it's getting completely overshadowed by the bad stuff that the game has. And I mean, like, the developers should have 100% seen that. Like, they should have seen that coming. But that's where their messaging has all just been fucked up since the very get-go. So
it's just such a mess.
This is actually, it's a kind of a good segue into the news about Sony pulling it from the store. Like,
we can talk more about our developing opinions on Cyberpunk next episode.
Well, we don't need to sort of cover too much more as far as the news chatter goes.
Last point. Why is driving so shit? All right, move on.
I switched to third person and played it like GTA, and I was fine.
Third person. third person, and also by the Mitsutani.
Is that the bike or one of the cars?
The Mitsutani is a car. Like a lot of it comes down to handling and braking with the specific vehicles.
Is that a Aliens Weyland Yutani Mitsubishi? Is that the mashup there?
It's like a kinda, yeah. It kind of looks like a Mitsubishi actually.
So when you crash, the airbag is a face hugger. Is that how it works?
Do you guys know that every single quest is named after a song?
No.
That's fucking cool if that's the case.
Every single quest in the game is a song.
I like that.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, do we want to talk any more Cyberpunk news? I think we've actually kind of covered Cyberpunk to the extent that we need to.
I think that's 1 hour of Cyberpunk.
That's
basically 1 hour of Cyberpunk. I'll just say, like, if you are living under a rock somewhere, yes, it was pulled from the PlayStation Store. There's a variety of reasons why, but it's because it's pretty shit on PS4. It's unacceptably shit. So there you go.
Yep.
I mentioned this in our chat, but every time I walk past an EB Games, there's always a stand right at the front with Cyberpunk for PS4 on there, and I just look at it and I go, how is that still on sale? Like how? Yeah. Like I guess it's kind of thing where it's like, oh, if people are still going to buy it, just buy it.
It's a complicated mechanism as far as stock and commitments to stores and contracts and that sort of shit goes.
They didn't make it illegal to sell. It's just
I know.
Yeah. They have committed to a couple of big patches in, I think it's January and February, to address the lion's share of the issues, so that they can kind of buckle down, heads down, and work on stuff, and then release it in one big go. God knows what it's going to be like then. Like I think. I could not recommend the game to anybody until seeing what those patches contain. And even then, we'll see. So, yeah. All right, Christian, over to you. What are we going to spend most of our final industry news segment talking about tonight to cap off what we did a couple of episodes ago?
Game Awards?
Yeah! Let's do it.
Yep.
Talk Game Awards.
So we did...
Correct.
We did our Game Awards predictions.
You win the Game Award for correctly answering the question about the Game Awards.
Yes, good. And the Game Awards did happen. I don't know. I don't want to go through the whole list or anything because anyone can just Google that. You can just watch it or Google it yourself. But I'll just go over the predictions we made and how close we were, I guess. I don't want to talk too much because my voice is wearing out slowly too, so I don't want to...
I was going to say, just before we do that, can we just mention a couple of things that were shown at the Game Awards in terms of like trailers and reveals and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, you do that because my voice is going.
Yeah, no worries. One thing I did want to sort of talk about briefly was that they showed a trailer for a new or a remake of Perfect Dark, which I thought was a bit surprising.
Fuck yes.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Perfect Dark was one of the games that got me into first-person shooters when I was young. Like, I played the shit out of multiplayer just against AIs. I fucking love Perfect Dark.
Did it look like enough of like a return to form of that with what they showed on the footage, Matt?
They were talking about the game world. Like the trailer kind of showed game world and stuff. They had a Datadyne building. Like, there's nothing to really say about the actual gameplay, but the world itself sounds really fucking cool. I like. They had a developer interview that they actually released. They kind of talked about it, where it was basically a I forget the term they used, but essentially the world had a gigantic apocalyptic event, which seems to be pretty heavily hinted at being climate change, and then the world got saved by corporations, and so it's this very green society that exists. Ever since, but the corporations, it's kind of cyberpunky, but not dystopian, in that the corporations are basically in charge of everything. Everything's running on green power. Buildings have plants all over them. It looks like, quite pretty and quite nice.
It's like a shadow utopia almost.
Yeah. Like it's like you've got a utopia kind of aspect to it. But it's hinting at the fact that, the corporations have done something to kind of achieve that. And it needs to be brought to light. Original Perfect Dark wasn't like it opened up with, hey, shitty corporations. Like that was absolutely how it opened up. But then it went very rapidly into save the I can't help but shake the memory. Like he had a freaking American flag underwear on or something like that. Like
It's like what's his face from American Dad?
Yes,
the little alien.
Sounds the little grey aliens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and actually replay the original Perfect Dark to tell you how exactly that developed, but whether or not the new game kind of goes into that, like, it was quirky, right? Like, but I'm all for, like, they were talking about the secret agent aspect of it and everything, kind of leaning into that, and the mobility and combat styles of like a 007 style character, and that sounds kick-ass, but it's all talk right now. So whether or not I'm going to be happy with it, like, that's completely up in the air. So
give me a laptop gun, give me a far sight, give me good multiplayer.
Gadgets. Lean into gadgets, not gunplay.
Yeah. Matt, why did I call you Mark? I've done this too many times. So I'm running out of excuses. I was going to say, Matt, what do you feel about Arc 2? Is that something that excites you?
I laughed.
Vin Diesel in Arc 2?
That trailer was garbage. Holy shit, that trailer was bad. I'm completely not excited. Like, again, no gameplay, and given what that studio released last time, I think anybody in their right mind is not excited about Arc 2.
Oh, you mean
very, very cautious. Atlas. Yeah. Because it could very well just end up being like, hey, it's Arc with a new coat of paint. Woo! Like, nobody's going to be particularly excited about that. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
It does perhaps point to them focusing more on a narrative sort of aspect to it.
Yeah. Like Arc's story is actually really fucking cool. Where when you play it, you only see it secondhand because it's like Minecraft, right? Like, it's like running around in somebody's Minecraft map and seeing all of these logs about their experiences in Minecraft. That's what it kind of feels like in Arc, where you never actually interact with those characters and there's not really a narrative that you're playing through. But it's really cool because it's basically like, hey, aliens are abducting people from all over the timeline to put them onto this planetoid for some reason. And there's dinosaurs.
Sounds like the new season of Fortnite.
So the idea of, like, if it was actually single player, I think that would be actually really cool. Like a single player Arc campaign where you're actually meeting these historical figures that have been abducted by aliens and they're having to deal with dinosaurs. That sounds fucking great. Like, it sounds ridiculously weird, and the game should lean into that. But I don't know if it will be that thing.
A first player story arc, if you will. All right, anyway. And the last thing, which I think we've all got opinions on, which they showed at the very end of the Game Awards, was a short trailer for a new Mass Effect, which was like, the fuck? So, yeah, which seemed to feature a certain Asari character that we're all pretty familiar with. So, yeah.
It was definitely her.
Was that? I thought that was just a random Asari.
Nope.
Don't think so.
Nope, they confirmed it on Twitter. It is actually her. It's Liara.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because people were like, they were even heavily hinting that there's more stuff in the trailer that kind of hints at the world and what's going on. Towards the end of the trailer, there's a group of characters standing by a spaceship, which people were basically like, hey, is that Grunt?
Yeah.
And like, they seem to be going like, we cannot confirm nor deny. So it sounds like a lot of the old cast are returning. So, yeah.
Be interesting to see how they connect the dots between the trilogy and this.
Yeah. Like, I was discussing it with friends, and what I kind of hope, like, Asari are mega long-lived, right? And so if Liara is looking mega old, maybe it's been like 500 or 1,000 years or something like that, and like, you know, it's all archaeology, right? Like, we don't know what decision Commander Shepard made. We just know this is what the world is like now, right?
Can she actually potentially
mega vague?
Can she potentially die during your playthrough? I forget.
I don't think so.
No. Okay, she's not one of the ones that...
Because she's a real key component of Mass Effect 3, so... Yeah,
like Morden, I don't think you can lose either, can you?
Oh, no, you can technically... You can actually lose all of them, but she's not in Mass Effect 2 as a companion, so... you couldn't lose her there.
That's right, yeah, she more NPC role. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm very curious, but I think that it to me the trailer, if you can call it that, the hype trailer for Mass Effect reminded me a shitload of the purpose behind and the reveal of the trailer for that pirate game a couple of years ago by Ubisoft, Skull and Bones.
Oh yeah,
which I've sort of since learned from talking to a bunch of people that was probably more motivated by the internal politics of the corporate takeover they were trying to fight off at the time.
Yeah.
And there's probably business reasons more than anything for them to do that, and it seems similar with BioWare kind of trying to instill some investor confidence, perhaps by showing that they've got new projects on the horizon that are very well-known, beloved IPs, rather than the fact that they're actually any distance along in that development at all.
I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's also to appease EA. I would not be surprised if it was like say internal politics. BioWare's got to show something. Like they will not have they'll be on pre-production with Mass Effect. It's years away.
Yeah.
Like showing a trailer right now to get up. It's not about hype. It's absolutely not about hype, because that hype train will sail way before the game comes out. Like the game is years off.
But now they're going to have to deal with people sort of asking questions about it for fucking forever. So they're going to they made a rob from their own back as far as that's concerned. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely for internal political reasons. I can see that.
Yeah. All right, let's talk winners and categories and stuff. So how did we do? I think we all picked most of the same stuff anyway. So
we all picked most of the same stuff anyway. Actually, yeah. So the only real differences were, what was it? What happened? Nobody wanted Last of Us 2 to win Game of the Year, which it did. But three of us thought that it would. Or who didn't think it would?
That was me.
Matt. Yeah.
Yeah, I put down hopeful decisions, and then 2020 turned out to be the year that it was. So
yeah. Ghost of Tsushima won the best art direction, which Luke and I both wanted to happen, and because we all thought that Hades was going to win. That's, I think, one of the only ones we were completely united on. We all thought Hades was going to win that, but it didn't.
It's a good winner, though. I was very happy with that.
Yeah. Actually, we all also thought Last of Us 2 was going to win best narrative, which it did, much to Matt and my disappointment. But to
it also won best direction.
Yes, best direction, which was very weird. I just really wanted to talk about the fact that Final Fantasy VII won best score, which I found very vindicating, because people shat on that soundtrack, namely Luke shat on that soundtrack when we talked about it, and I think it's amazing. So
I want to be clear, I don't dislike it. It was just comparative to the other nominees. That was where I was coming from.
I think that you just haven't heard enough of it, because you've hardly played that game. So
okay, that could be true too. Yeah.
And then Indy was predictable. Of course, Hades won it, and we all hoped that was going to happen, and it did.
I am also super glad Among Us took out so many awards. Like, that game fucking deserves them as well. Like,
what a story! That's one of the best kind of feel-good stories of the year, I think.
It's like a comeback and then ending up at the Game Awards. Like, fuck yes, I'm so happy for that team. Well, I think actually the biggest news about the Game Awards this year was, in my opinion, it was so much better than E3. Like, in terms of like actual announcements and everything, it was better than E3. And the advertising was the announcements. Like, it was a vast improvement over previous years, I think, in my opinion.
I think this year in general,
I actually enjoyed watching it.
This year in general's made a pretty good case for why E3 just does not matter anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Like put all your announcements in a Game Awards show. Like, fuck yeah, let's go. Yeah, it was really cool. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. It didn't feel like it was being just corporate trash in terms of advertising material and everything. Like, it feels like it's kind of matured past that. So having all the awards and announcements of new games is just really cool.
I have a history on this podcast of just basically saying everything should be a direct. Like, I've been saying for years, get rid of press conferences, get rid of the in-person events, make everything essentially a direct. And I feel like this is, again, vindication.
Yep. Dylan just said in the chat, and I didn't know this, Jeff Keighley's face was a mask in Among Us, which was apparently fucking terrifying. And that does sound terrifying.
It's not even a good mask either. It's just like one of the regular hats with, like, if you'd imagine that they printed his face out onto a piece of cardboard and then just gaffer taped it onto the front of one of the helmets, that's what it looked like.
That sounds perfect. I love it.
It's pretty funny. Yeah. I was pretty happy with most of the picks in the end. The awards went to fairly deserving winners for the most part, so that was good.
I ended up watching it without giving much of a shit about the actual awards because I knew I was going to be disappointed in most cases. But the actual announcements, they were great. There was some unexpected stuff in there. Like, yeah. Like I was at work with students watching it with them instead of teaching a class. And like honestly hopped out of my seat when Perfect Dark was announced. Like woo! And no, all of them were based like, what the fuck's a Perfect Dark?
Yeah, it's fair.
How old are you?
Yep. All right. Well, shall we do it? Shall we jump into the main event? Let's talk about our party favorites, part 2. So we've got another 4 categories to go through tonight to cap off what we kicked off last episode. So this is our, for anyone who hasn't seen what we've done with regards to party favorites in the past, whether it be last episode or the last few years in general, party favorites is our own unique spin on our Game of the Year discussion. So basically, it's all very subjective, hence why it's party favorites and not overall Game of the Year or anything like that, because we're not necessarily discussing and deliberating on the best of each category. We're talking about our personal picks for each category, our own favorites as it will be. And we've got a bit of a spin on the different categories. So last week we discussed our biggest surprise, our biggest disappointment, the character that you'd most like to punch, and the gaming moment of the greatest schadenfreude. Sort of for the year. So that was a good time. You can go back and listen to that. Tonight, we've got 4 categories to discuss. So we, of course, are going to end on our favourite games of the year, which will be top 3 for each of us. We're also going to talk through our... actually, should I mention the others? No, let's just get to them in turn and we'll explain them as we go. I think it's probably the better approach. All right.
Yep.
What we are going to start with, though, is the category that I suggested for us this year, which is 2020's greatest gaming earworm. So this is very much an audio themed category, and what I want everybody to do is to pick what sort of sound effect, voice line, VO in general, or track or music element has really kind of stuck with them throughout the year and made a lasting impression that they just cannot get it out of their head. So it's something that's continuously played on their mind long after having heard it, hence the great earworm of 2020. So I would like to invite Adrian to kick off tonight, mostly because I have audio accompaniments for each of those, and I happen to have yours queued up. So, yeah.
My earworm was hard because despite being a musical guy, I don't really pay a lot of attention to music in games and the sound design of games. I always remember Christian and our mate Dave always talking about, I love the music in that part and stuff like that, and I was always like, this movie score was so good, and I was like, So I had to approach a lot of these the same way I normally do, where it's like, just think. I almost said pathologically, which is telling. Think practically about what songs do I remember, and the one that stood out to me is the Animal Crossing theme. And that maybe is my earworm because it's the only game I can think of that I played this year where I would hum the tune while not playing the game. And that's the only way I could decide was I can't, any other game I played this year, I was like, don't remember any music from that one. Don't remember any music from that one. Animal Crossing. That's my earworm. That was my process. So that's what
I would like to at this point invite any one particular person amongst us to also contribute to this discussion. Yeah.
Yes. So I also picked this as my earworm. Yeah. Because absolutely,
just keep talking. I'm going to play it in the background. So go for it.
Yeah. There was a few solid months, right when sort of the local lockdown was happening in Perth, where we were all just playing Animal Crossing, and I played it every day for months, like a couple of months straight, logging in every day and hearing this music on the title screen every single day. and it is a full-on earworm. Just like that first jingle part. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The music that 2020 should have been.
Yeah. It really did start out nice and calm and didn't last. So, yeah. It's a great track though, and I particularly love this this musical version of it where we can actually see all of the different instruments at play as well.
Oh yeah,
This is awesome.
Such a wholesome song. Like it just sounds wholesome. I love it.
It does sound wholesome. Yeah.
And the fact that you can actually get all of the different music discs from KK Slider in game for all of the various different tunes and things as well, including this one, I think that's just a really nice touch and something that you enjoy doing as part of the whole journey throughout the game. So, yeah.
Did you know, apparently Animal Crossing, the most recent one, has over 100 unique music tracks?
I wouldn't.
Did we all pick the same thing?
No. Just you two. Yeah.
I'd heard that piece of trivia just recently. It has over 100 because, different months, different times of day have different tracks. So every hour has its own track. Different seasons have different tracks for the season. So yeah, over 100 tracks plus the KK Slider ones. It's even more than that. So
that's interesting.
91 KK songs that just from Dylan in the chat. Yeah, just 91 KK songs in the game. So there's so many different music tracks in that game. I love it.
I am actually genuinely shocked by that number. Like, I would have picked a large number, but not quite that large. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that over 100 is not including the KK Slider ones. When you include them, it's way more. So
yeah, interesting. All right, well, let's move on to Matt then for the next one.
Mine was easy. The moment you put down video gaming earworms, I'm like, oh fuck, I know that one already. Because it is the song that's kind of like stuck out at me the most.
I wanted to get. I think I might know what it is.
Yeah, you should try and guess it, Adrian. I reckon this would be a fun
try
thing.
and guess. I'm genuinely curious if you can guess.
Is it the song that plays in the Deepstone Crypt raid?
Yes, it is.
When you go out into space. Yeah.
Yep. It is.
I thought it was just from your reaction when we did it. I was like, I bet that's going to be Matt's.
That track.
Here we go.
Like, it is beautiful. Like, it's not what you would call a banger, but it does get stuck in your head. And just that whole sequence, I think the music makes it. Like, being out in space and everything is cool. Like, it's awesome to actually see that in Destiny, but that moment would not be what it is without the music track accompanying it.
Deepstone Lullaby. Yeah, it really it hits home because of the sequence that it plays in. You're absolutely right. Like, the fact that you, like, all of the other noise around you because you're in sort of zero gravity open space, like, everything else just gets dulled down at that point and sort of washed out in a way so that the music track actually shines through above it all. I think it's perfect. It really sets the tone for that whole segment. It's such a like, it's a roller coaster. Like you go into the raid and everything, you get through the first encounter, which isn't that bad. You fight Eramis, which is such a fucking awesome fight. And then, like, you're up on this high, and then you go out into space with this playing, and it's just like, I wouldn't call it a low moment, but it's like just such a, it gives me goosebumps every time we do the raid, and I mute everyone just to listen to it. I love it. It definitely has some sort of high points where it's really crescendos off as you're sort of going through some particularly difficult parts of the jumping puzzle. Actually, I'm just going to skip ahead to a later part of the track, because I think it's worthwhile sort of experiencing. Yeah, there we go. When it picks up pace a little bit. Yeah.
It's kind of hopeful. Like, in a lot of ways, it almost feels like the Guardians kind of journey, a little bit in this whole expansion.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, great track.
I regret the fact that we're not going to be able to do another musical sort of themed episode as a whole. That's one of the.
Let's do a special one day.
I mean, there's no reason why we can't do that sort of thing. That'd be really, really cool. All right, well, that brings us to me now. My pick for Earworm this year is actually one that I don't know if all of you have heard this one before. I know that Christian probably has. I'd be surprised if he hadn't.
It's something Persona. It's got to be.
It's actually not. So,
Genshin?
No, it's not. So this track is actually for a game that didn't release this year, but the track itself did release this year. And the reason why is because it's actually linked to the special edition of this game that's going to be coming out next year.
Is it Nier?
No, not for Nier. So this is the track for the special edition of Devil May Cry. So this is actually the main theme for Virgil, who's the character who's being sort of expanded out to be a single-player playable character in DMC5 Special Edition. Now, there's history behind Virgil. He's actually been playable in at least one of the other games, I believe, because he's got like a legacy of history.
He was playable in 3 and 4 Special Editions.
That sounds about
so
right.
So it's usually the special edition adds Virgil, which happened in 3 and 4.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to play all of this track because it is 9 minutes long and it fucking goes places. But as a musical piece, the amount of skill that has gone into this, it just blew me the fuck away. And you'll notice immediately by the kind of music it is why it's one of my favorites. So let me just play that. It's going to start off pretty loud, so just prepare yourself. There we go. So, bit of
slow Luke.
It is absolutely, but it's also the kind of combination that I really, really like, which is that hard, sort of grimy kind of heavy guitar music, but the really nice sort of melodic element to it as well. But this track just is all over the place with that stuff. Like it doesn't repeat itself a lot. It's got a lot of unique elements to it. The lyrics tell like a really cool story with regards to the character, and some of the later stuff. Like there's a fucking violin solo at one point, and some really nice sort of separate guitar work that stands out from the main kind of hook. And the whole track is just fucking awesome. Like the reason why this is an earworm for me is because I love the DMC5 soundtrack. Like I'm a huge fan of Devil Trigger. Like Devil Trigger was originally composed by Casey Edwards, who also did this track. But this one, I think the vocals are done on this track by a guy named Victor Gorba, if memory serves, who's different to the lady who did Devil Trigger. But it's freaking amazing. Like Casey Edwards, I believe, is a guy who became known doing his own sort of video game YouTube stuff. So he kind of got picked up talent-wise for working on music for this game. But let me just skip ahead to a later part of the track as well. So there we go. Yeah, so it really sort of goes through different parts where it goes down low again and, really growly, sort of, there's some voices that are a bit demonic and dark in the way that they kind of come across, and then they spin up again and get really intense. It's just, the whole track is a journey, and I highly recommend people to check it out. It is very, very cool. So
every time I hear you play and like music of that style, I always just think you need to play Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. I say it all the time.
Yeah,
because the soundtrack to that game is that shit straight up, and it's so good.
Yeah, I think that I will take you up on that piece of advice and do that real soon. Because you usually fairly accurately pick the kind of music that I'm going to like, and I don't think you've been wrong often. So even
if you just listen to the soundtrack, because that game I've mentioned before has no good version at all that you can play. There's a terrible PC port that's like locked. It's like 720p is the highest resolution you can play it at, and then there's no current gen ports. So I do not recommend playing that game at the moment unless you go to a lot of trouble of emulating it with like high frame rate and high resolution. But just listen to the soundtrack at least.
Yeah, I think I will do that.
Dylan in chat is asking, what was the name of that soundtrack? Or that song?
The song is called Bury the Light. So I will chuck a link up in our show notes to all of these tracks. But it's from the Devil May Cry 5 special edition. It is Virgil's theme. So if you just do a search for Virgil's theme DMC5, you'll find it. Bury the Light. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking.
So
awesome.
I have to special shout out to a song that I almost picked, and I think the only reason I didn't is because I haven't had enough opportunities to listen to it, because the game unfortunately doesn't seem to give them. and that is Chipping In from Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh,
that
yeah.
track is fucking great.
I've actually got like
Really
a massive Cyberpunk playlist that's just constantly on rotation at the moment. Like, it's not stuff just from the game. It's like just all Cyberpunk themed things.
Yeah.
I'm sure people will put these playlists together for actually playing the RPG, and there's just heaps of them online. But there's some of them that are a bit trashy, but there are some that are really, really good mixes that I've enjoyed having on repeat. But the tracks that have been true earworms for me this year, like that one being one of them, I literally listen to almost every day. Like, I just love them that much.
Chipping In is great. Like, it's unfortunate because there's reasons in the game why you don't hear much of Samurai's music, but yeah, I wish I could hear more of it. So
nice. All right, well, let's kick into our second category of the night then, which is, just bring up my list, we've got the most emotional moment. So most emotional moment of 2020 when it comes to games or the games industry. So let's go Christian first for this one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll start us off on a probably a bit of a downer or a real emotional moment for me. So my most emotional moment comes from Flight Simulator 2020 of all games, and it's because my father, who was killed 13 years ago today, actually, was a pilot, and that's like a big part of his life was being a pilot. And growing up, he imparted a love of flight and a love of planes in me and my brothers. And so just experiencing such a high fidelity, immersive flight simulator was just like a way of connecting to what he enjoyed in life so much. And in a way, it was emotional for me to fly in a similar plane that he did over Perth, similar places that he had. It just gave me a emotional, just resonated with me in a very emotional way of connecting with my dad in that way. So definitely an emotional moment for me.
I could definitely see that. Yeah. That's a really strong one.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
I don't have anything else to add to that.
I mean, what else do you need to say, really? I can definitely empathise with that. Matt, what about you?
I can't say much about this without spoiling the game, so I have to be kind of vague. So imagine you have gotten to the end of a game, and it's a really sad and heartfelt kind of ending, and the departure of a character that is really well loved, and you're still kind of sitting there wiping your eyes because you've been crying, because of course you have. And then the game throws a fucking dad joke at you, and it's the character's last words. And so you're sitting there and you're in tears, but you're also laughing because of this fucking god-awful pun that's just been thrown in your face. And that's why I've got to choose Che's Pot Plant from Necrobarista without giving any context whatsoever other than that line. And anybody that's played Necrobarista and finished it will 100% know the moment I'm talking about when I say Che's Pot Plant. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's another game that's got a lot of connective tissue to a lot of people's life experiences in a similar vein.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like that game was also kind of a little bit personal in that, like, anything with death. I lost my partner not that long ago, and it's a game that's about kind of letting go and kind of like allowing somebody to leave. Essentially, is what Necrobarista is about. Like, it's a game. It's all about death and everything. But it's very much, that's kind of the main theme of it. Is it's letting go of the people that you care about. And the ending is just such a brilliant moment because it felt personal, even though it's about characters. So, yeah, like 100%, easily my favorite moment, emotional moment of the year.
Yeah. I'll go next just to mix up the order a little bit. So my most emotional moment of the year was actually, it was a moment that I did not expect. It was a huge surprise, and it was a moment of absolute joy for me, because it relates to one of my favorite things in my favorite video games ever, and that is when a particular piece of music really strikes a chord with me with regards to the moment of the game that it's in. And I think that, having said that, Christian will probably know exactly what this is.
This is Persona, right?
This is Persona, yeah. So I'm going to have to be very vague here because I'm aware that Matt in particular might actually play this at some point. So I want to not spoil this for you. But one of the things that Persona 5 does very, very well is it uses music to create emotion with different encounters in the game, particularly really, really tense moments. And there is one boss fight in particular late in the game where there's a music track that plays when you fight this boss. And it's really intense and grimy and sounds great. And it's very sort of orchestral, and it's an awesome, awesome track. And I'll just play a little bit of it to sort of give you an idea, just to sort of set the mood. But then midway through the fight, you get that transition as you do in a lot of sort of games of this nature. And you basically have to fight the boss over again in a sort of second phase. And everything seems like it's sort of starting off the same way, and you kind of think, this is to be expected. This is the sort of stuff that happens in Persona games quite often. It feels the same. It feels intense. It feels important. But then all of a sudden, the lyrics kick in, and that changes everything. And the rest of the track with the lyrics that just sort of start coming out just absolutely encapsulate you and make you think, holy shit, this feels like the final moments of this game. And that this is the most important thing that I've done for the last, you've been in this game for nearly 60, 70 hours at this point, and you're just like, shit just got real. After that amount of time, you feel like shit just got real. And I immediately just sat down, shut my door, blocked out the entire world, and just went, I need to play this game through to a completion from this point onwards. I didn't, of course, because, that's still a lot of fucking hours. But just the fact that it was so unexpected, and this, this became one of my favorite songs of the year too. The only reason why I didn't mention it in terms of my earworms is because this particular track came out in a previous year. It wasn't a release this year. So it wasn't my 2020 sort of earworm. But as far as most emotional moment, it just sent shivers down my spine, like when it happened like that for me.
That's Rivers in the Desert. Is that the song name?
That's it, yeah. I highly recommend for anyone who wants to sort of check it out, go look for Persona 5 OST Rivers in the Desert Extended. There's an extended version of it. You can get just the orchestral version, or you can get the version with lyrics. They usually have the version with lyrics available, particularly if you search for it on YouTube. But it's one of my favorite video game tracks of all time. It's fucking amazing. So
it is amazing,
and just matching the moment. I actually feel shivers right now. Yeah,
I think Shapeshifter is still my favorite song from Persona 5. It doesn't have that energy, but just as far as the amount of times I've gone back and listened to it, Shapeshifter is my favorite.
It's good, yeah. Adrian, what hit you with the emotionals this year?
I had a hard time with this category because I'm not a very emotional person with games. I think I talked about this last time we had this category where, I don't tend to invest emotionally too much in games, and it occurs to me that especially in 2020, I've played very few games overall, but I think mine is more of like a feel good kind of team moment, and I'm confident it was earlier this year that we did the Garden of Salvation raid together.
Oh yeah,
and we were butting our heads against, and it wasn't even the final boss. I think it was the second last boss, which is the big harpy that you fight down the hallways.
Yeah.
And we were struggling, and we wiped, and then we finally killed it. And there was like a physical from everyone in the Discord at the same time, and it was an emotion, but not like a classic, like everyone was sad, everyone was happy. It was this sort of sense of achievement, emotion that I haven't. I mean, and again, pragmatically, I've never experienced that before, so that stands out as like a really emotional moment. There was another one I had banked. What was it?
Triumph is great as an emotion, but shared triumph, it has another level. Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I think maybe that comes across in all the, because this year is the first time, I know for Christian as well, that I have properly experienced raiding in Destiny, and in fact in any video game. Like I've never played WoW, so I never really, well I have, but not at that level. I've never experienced that level of team accomplishment ever before, and this year I got like a lot of it from playing with you guys, so that was really emotional. And the only other one, which is a bit of a lighter thing, and it ties into the last podcast 2 weeks ago, was in Mortal Kombat. Is a very emotional experience, mostly rage. Honestly, without making it too much of a bit and making it funny, it makes me very angry. Like playing Mortal Kombat makes me very angry, and it's psychologically an interesting exploration into my own psyche. Like a lot of that anger comes from the firm belief that I am a better human being than whoever is on the other end of that match. Like not even a better player, just a better organism. And when they beat me, they actually deserve to die. Like that person like deserves something horrible to happen to them. Only in the fleetest of moments do I think that. And then it just returns to a general seething saltiness. But fighting games, man, they do something to you. Like, or to me, anyway.
No, that's like they create really strong emotions, which is why I stopped playing Street Fighter, was because it's too emotional for me. I couldn't hack the roller coaster.
It's an interesting experience, and especially for Mortal Kombat, which is a game designed to be insulting to other people. Like the very system of fatalities, the very system of, even like when you quit a match, it will punish you on the screen for quitting mid-match, like things like that. So the game is designed to make you frustrated. So, and nowhere else in online gaming this year have I been on the other end of abuse as much as I have in Mortal Kombat. Like, anyone can just abuse you via a microphone plugged into their PS4 controller. And the amount of times I've had young kids like use horrific language against me while teabagging me, and then I wish them to die. Like, what does that say about the emotional response that fighting games has in people?
I'm getting an image right now of Thor in Avengers Endgame, like when he's like hanging crap on Noobmaster 69.
It's a bit like that. Yeah, it's a bit like that. So there, I suppose those are emotional. Those that's a high and a low point, I guess, for me.
Yeah. Not only is that a great selection, but that is perfectly on brand for you, which is why I love it.
Yeah.
So
But the rating truly has been, even if not at the time, looking back on it, a very emotional experience. Because, and I mean this honestly, I've really valued being a part of your group, Luke, and meeting people in your clan and your circle of friends, because Christian and Matt, Matt's group, like you two.
It's mostly Matt's group. I was a Johnny come lately to that group for the most part.
I think it's because you've kind of Sherped us through more of it. That's why it feels.
And I know, and Christian will attest to this, where like up until being a proper part of Party Loaded, I've only ever played online with Christian. Like I've never done larger scale online gaming with teams working together. So that has been emotional for me.
I do look forward to a day, hopefully, that arrives in the future where we can all maybe jump into Cyberpunk and play multiplayer together, because I think we could have a lot of fun.
That'd be cool.
Would be cool, yeah.
But let's like when Gosling Garden Destiny 2 Vault of Glass. Yeah, day one. I will keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, don't keep your mouth shut for the next bit, Matt, because next category is your one. So your creation, which I think bears some explaining. So
yes, it's a very 2020 award, gremlin-gremlin award. This is a callback to a previous episode. I didn't dig up the number. I was kind of tempted.
Yeah, the episode name is Gremlin-Gremlins.
Yeah. But the idea of Gremlin-Gremlins was that it was the wrong answer to a quiz that we did, where a Gremlin-Gremlin is basically a game that is made with low effort. It's bad, but it's good because the gameplay's fun. So it's a bad, good thing. So that's what the Gremlin-Gremlin award is. So it's something bad from the previous year or this year that you've kind of enjoyed anyway, despite it being considered bad or you thinking that it's bad anyway. So like I will give my answer because it's a good example, and I had two games that were very quickly ended out nearly being my answer to this. But my Gremlin-Gremlin award this year goes to Watch Dogs Legion. Because I didn't expect it to be any good. And then my save file got corrupted and I was locked out of it for over a month. And I haven't been able to come back to it yet, even though the save file issue has been fixed. But despite all the major flaws with it, I still have fun with it. And despite kind of seeing like, this is a fairly shallow gameplay experience, all the characters are fairly samey, but I can enjoy the effort that's been put into it in allowing players to kind of, I see this grandma on the street. I want to play as her. The fact that they've kind of allowed that kind of freedom. I really appreciate that in a series that was very quickly kind of stagnating, just being very samey and after being such an edgelord kind of experience in the first one. So yeah, that's my Gremlin-Gremlin award. My very, very close runner-up was Cyberpunk because I was not expecting it to be good, and then I kind of enjoyed it. So yeah, that's me. What about you, Adrian? I want to hear from you.
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't have a pick for this category because I don't play games I don't think are good, and and a big part of it was this year. Money has been quite tight for me and my family, so I couldn't afford to spend money on games that weren't good, and if they weren't good, I refunded them almost immediately. So I honestly don't have a category. I don't have a pick for that.
From the way you've spoken about games this year, it might be Cyberpunk as well. With the way that,
well, Matt, perhaps. I mean, it's in progress, but it could be Cyberpunk, to be honest. I think it's hard to say that that's a bad game because, like, it's very competent.
What about that Subnautica expansion?
Yeah, okay, that's not a bad idea. I think. Yeah, Subnautica came out with an expansion called Below Zero, which is in early access. And I rarely play early access games because they can be a bit jank. And only a couple of weeks ago, I played Subnautica Below Zero all the way through, up to the point where it's developed up to. But again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just unfinished. And I would like them to finish it so I can finish it. I don't know. I don't know.
I actually think that yours should be Destiny.
Destiny,
because you talked shit like crazy about Destiny back earlier in this year.
Yeah, you're probably right. Actually,
you were talking so much shit.
That's a very good point. Yeah, actually, that is a really good point. I gave Destiny an unseemly amount of shit, and now I would not even touch Warframe because of Destiny. And I. Yeah, no, you're right. It's Destiny because, there's parts of it I still hate.
For the record, my position has not changed on both of those games, and that is that they are both fucking good. So you can like both things. Man,
good call. I think you're right. It is Destiny. Yeah, I think raiding really turned me around on Destiny. Like having that experience really changed how I perceived it. But yeah, no, you're right. There's tons of shit in Destiny where I'm like, this is fucking stupid, but I still play it.
Yep. Yeah, even me. I still get like that with Destiny, especially this year. Like this year with shit being removed and everything, like that kind of makes it. It's
just some of the dumbest. Yeah, okay, like the cryptolith in this season. What the fuck is going on with the cryptolith? How does it work? No one explains it. Why does it have 15 different sub-menus? It's just a pile of dog shit. Yeah, good call, Matt.
Perfect.
What about you, Luke?
I also massively struggled with this category, and the reason why is because I went back through the entire list of games that I've played this year, because I've been able to fairly successfully track it on Steam and GOG and the various consoles that I know that I've touched this year. And I wrote down the entire list, like absolutely nothing missed, like of every single game that I played this year. And for the first year in a long time, I can actually confidently say that there was not a single game on that list that I didn't enjoy. And almost all of them I expected to enjoy to a certain extent. Like even Avengers being a good example. Like I expected that game to be average. It was average. I still greatly enjoyed the campaign of it, so I wouldn't call that a Gremlin-Gremlin. But there is one game. Well, there was two that I was kind of sort of trying to decide between. That my expectations versus how much enjoyment I ultimately got out of them were a bit out of whack. Like the expectations being a lot lower. I nearly picked Temtem, which is the Pokemon-like game that was out earlier in the year, because I didn't expect that to be like super good. I expected it to be decent, and it was pretty good. Like I quite enjoyed it, but my experience wasn't too far off the expectations. But the one that I am going to choose, which might surprise you guys, and you might actually argue with me about it, because I think that most of the world expected it to be pretty good. I didn't. Like I thought that due to the nature of the game and the type of game that it is, I thought that I would bounce off it really fucking hard. And I thought that the potentially predatory model sort of the game is built on the foundation of would really rub me the wrong way. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I love this game so fucking much to the point that I am playing it every day at the moment, and I suspect I will continue to for quite some time, and that's Genshin Impact. So, yeah. I think the game...
can totally 100% agree with that, honestly, yeah.
It's got characters in it that look like gremlins as well, so I feel it kind of matches that too. Yeah. But I expected the game to be shit.
If I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, it looks like a gacha game designed to rip you off of all your money in the shell of a pale Breath of the Wild clone. But it's not that. It's so much more than that. And it's actually a fucking awesome game. And the story stuff, once you get into it, is hugely enjoyable. They've added tons of stuff to the game since release. There's another huge area that's about to open up later this week as well, which I'm dead set hyped about. Like, I'm really fucking excited to play this new area. And it's impressed me to no end. Like, it has absolutely blown my expectations out of the water. So, yeah, that's my gremlin.
Christian.
Mine is also weeb trash, but it's a different kind of weeb trash. So I chose Code Vein for mine, which was the sort of anime Souls-like that I played quite early into the year. I went back to my notes from when I talked about it on the podcast, and like some of the stuff I wrote about it for the discussion was, it's a good thing I find the combat satisfying because the game is far from perfect. Enemies are uninspired and boring with lots of repetition. Environments are mostly muddy, ugly, consisting of branching pathways. Some interesting exploration and shortcuts, but it's a shadow of how Souls or Sekiro handle it. Boss design is pretty meh visually and mechanically. So there's a lot of shit that I could criticize about that game. It's like it's the sort of game that I go, yeah, this is like a 6 out of 10, but for me, it was like a 7.5 out of 10. It's like I'm not going to say it's a 6, but to me, it was like a 9 or a 10. Even for me, it was a 7.5, but it was enough that I enjoyed it. So yeah,
you made it sound fun.
It skated through on its Souls fundamentals. So like it had bosses, it had bonfires, it had like the same vibe as a Souls game, and that was just enough to coast through the rest of the stuff in it, which wasn't so good. So,
nice.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Luke, final category.
The big one. All right, so we know how this works.
Big one.
We're going to go through our 3, 2, and number 1 picks for our favourite games of the year. How would you guys like to do this? Do you want to go through 3 picks, our number 3 picks, and then our number 2 picks, and then our number 1 picks, or do you want to just go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3?
I think 3, 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1.
All right. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's kick off in reverse order to what we just did then. So, Christian, do you want to lead off with our number 3 pick for you? For your number 3
sure. Let me just scroll back up to present time. So my number 3 pick for Game of the Year, Party Favorite 2020, and the final Party Favorite ever is Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh,
now
pick.
This is a game that I think technically I played over. It released at the end of last year, but we did not include it in our Party Favorites last year because it didn't make the cut. So it was definitely after, and it is also Souls-esque, Souls-like in some ways, but it's just a really solid Star Wars third-person action game with a really good story, with cool characters and fun gameplay. And I have really fond memories of playing Fallen Order, and I really look forward to the sequel that is in the works, inevitably. And I think that if anybody is a Star Wars fan and didn't play Fallen Order, they're for sure missing out because it's a really solid game.
I think if 2020 has given us anything, it's a resurgence in Star Wars fandom as well.
Yeah.
100%. So they should do like do some story DLC and release a definitive edition or something, and then give it a second wave because it deserves it. Not that it was overlooked, like it did sell okay, I think, but it has greater heights to reach, I think.
Yeah, they'll 100% do a sequel, and they should because it is fucking awesome. Yeah,
it's a great game.
100% agree. All right, well, I'll do my number 3 pick then. So my top 5 list of the year is basically 13 games long. So I really struggled because there's a lot of like in a year like this year, there's actually been a lot of really good games. Surprisingly,
it was a tough year.
Yeah, but the thing that I did sort of settle on is that it took a little bit of back and forth to get my 2 and 3. My number 1 was very, very easy, and we'll get to that later. But my number 3 pick for tonight, my third favorite game of the year, is actually Last of Us Part 2. So I vibed really well with that game. I love the shit out of it. I don't think it hit for me quite as hard as the original did, but that's like a standout game for the generation anyway. I think that's a whole other caliber, on its own. But like I know that Last of Us Part 2 to me this year, with our group in particular and the discourse we've had around it, reminds me a lot of the sort of conversations we had around Red Dead 2, where like there was a clear divide amongst a couple of us that really liked it and a couple of us that really didn't. And I feel it's been similar in that way with this. I like it in part because of its divisiveness. Like I think that some of the sort of cut down the middle sort of opinions that people have had strongly on one side or the other, particularly with regards to like a lot of it comes down to the fact that there's 2 main characters that are opposing forces that you actually have a very good reason to kind of feel sort of morally on the side of one or the other for different reasons. And I think that kind of dynamic
or neither.
Or neither, yeah, potentially, yeah. Actually, that's fair to say. Like, you could absolutely consider both of them to be, like, trash people and you want to see them both fail. That's absolutely a position. And I think that in itself is an interesting layer to the dialogue, too. Yeah, like, all of the other aspects of the game, like, it's just incredibly finely crafted. It's Naughty Dog at its best in terms of the game sort of design around sort of the different technical aspects of the game. The acting is phenomenal. Congratulations to Laura Bailey for winning Best Voice Actor for her role doing Abby. I think that was absolutely deserved. She did a phenomenal job with that. Yeah, like I'm not necessarily excited to see where Last of Us Part 3 takes the story because I think that you could bookend it now and I'd be happy. They will do a Part 3 at some point, and I'm sure I'll get excited then. But I'm satisfied. I'm sated at the moment. Like I'm very happy with where the experience went and where it sort of ended. But it's a game that kind of delivered on my expectations. Like I was expecting it to be phenomenal and different and divisive, and it was all those things to me, and I enjoy the shit out of it. So yeah. That's my number 3 pick. Let's go Matt next. What was yours?
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting everyone else is saying that they had a hard time, because I also had a hard time, but for completely different reasons, and that was basically my top 2 picks were solidified. Number 3 has been in flux, because nothing's really kind of stood out to me as, like, being a game kind of deserving of that place. And up until very recently, I had put a game on my list that I'd actually forgotten had released this year until I went through my list. I was like, oh shit, that was this year. Oh, okay. It's been a long ass year. That dropped off the list because I played Cyberpunk 2077 and that took number 3. So, we are doing the awards now. Technically we started 2 weeks ago, but Cyberpunk came out and it's before the awards, so I'm allowed to do this. Screw you guys.
Changing mine right
Fuck
now.
the rules.
Can I guess at the one that dropped off? Or no, I'll do that later. It's fine. Yeah.
No. I'm curious. I want to hear.
I can't remember if this is 2020 or not. I might have my dates wrong. But was it Outer Worlds?
No.
Okay.
Was it XCOM Chimera Squad?
Yes.
Ah, okay.
It was Chimera Squad. Yeah, I had completely forgotten Chimera Squad was the last year. I put that on the list literally because I was like, nothing else that I had played this year kind of stood out as being like, yeah.
Outer Worlds was last year. I got the dates wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about like Animal Crossing, that sort of thing, but like, I enjoyed those games, but they didn't really stand out as like top 3. Cyberpunk I'm thoroughly enjoying despite all the issues. And yeah, number 3. It was either going to be my top 3 or a gremlin-gremlin, so it was going to be one or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my number 3.
By all means, Matt, talk about Cyberpunk some more. No, that's all right. Adrian, number 3.
My number 3 was Hades.
Oh.
I thought Hades was good, really good, and I raved about it at the time, but I don't think about it anymore. So it can't be number 2 or number 1.
Yeah.
It was good when I played it. I really enjoyed it, but like I put it down. Again, I have to just look at things by the numbers, and that's it.
Yeah.
I think it was really good because I had a bit of resurgence because I played it in early access and then got to play it again once it was released proper, and it was a little bit different, so they got a bit more life out of it. But I'll save that for number 1.
Okay. All right. Well, do we want to reverse the order and hit us with your number 2 as well?
All right.
While we're there,
my number 2 is Last of Us 2. Mm-hmm. So I again, not for any other reason other than I've said it before. I just think about that game a lot. After having played it, so kind of on the other end of Hades, where like I played through it, but when I think about that game, I feel like I was there, like I feel like I was in those places, and I think it's just the quality of the art direction and the immersion of the spaces of the game. Like I felt really immersed in that game, and when I think back on it, it's almost like in my mind those were real places, and that's a nice thing for me. I enjoy thinking that, so I put that as my number 2.
Nice. Over to Matt.
All right. Continuing on with the theme of breaking rules, I'm choosing an expansion as my number 2 and not a real fucking game.
That's fine.
Beyond Light. Destiny Beyond Light was my number 2. The reason I put it in my top 3 is because it changed up enough of the game. And it's also one that's interesting just kind of talk about and the journey there. Because Beyond Light is the expansion I think I've most enjoyed of Destiny content in a long, long time. And I love Destiny as a game. But Forsaken, as cool as it was, didn't really stick with me in the way that Beyond Light has. And I kind of put a lot of that down to the experiences, actually playing it with friends the way I am now. Whereas with Forsaken, it was a much smaller group at that point in time. Whereas now Beyond Light, like we're raiding every week, twice a week, and that's a whole new experience for me. Like that's completely different from how it used to be. And just the amount of stuff that they've done with the game and the direction they're taking it and the story, God, the story content is kick-ass.
Storytelling is like mint.
Yeah, and so I'm just mega excited about where Destiny's going again. So yeah, Beyond Light is my number 2.
Nice. Who was next? Was it me? I think it was me.
That was you. I think we're doing a zigzag now.
So yeah, you're losing my positioning. My number 2 pick for 2020 was a game that I really enjoyed the hell out of. Expected it to be good, didn't expect it to be quite as good as it was, and reminded me of other games in the past that I've enjoyed and just chewed through in a similar manner. The most recent one that it reminds me of being Horizon Zero Dawn. So this is yet another one of my PlayStation Platinum trophies because of how much I wanted to get through and finish in this game. And number 2 for me is Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost is a fantastic game, and I love so many of the different sort of creative design aspects of it. I've spoken at length about the pathfinding using the air currents and how much I love that. The storytelling, the Kurosawa modes, the stuff that they added on later with Ghost of Tsushima Legends. I mean, even though I didn't play that aspect of it forever, I just thought that was a really cool thing to add, like not as a paid DLC, just as a completely free addition to the game. And it was basically like, extra single player challenge content with a raid attached to it. I was like, holy fuck, like what game does that? Of this nature. That surprised the hell out of me. Really enjoyed playing through that with Christian. That was really good fun as well. the story was fun. Like, it's not the most memorable story of all time, but the acting was phenomenal. The character development was great. The world you just lose yourself in. I love the Japanese sort of countryside, and it's how it was captured in that game, and just the beauty of it. It was awesome. I love Ghost of Tsushima. Number 2, solid pick for me. Yeah.
That was the game that was fighting for third position for me, and Fallen Order just pipped it because of how forgettable the story in Ghost was. Yeah. If Ghost had a better story, it would have got my third spot. But.
It's probably the 1 weak spot, I would agree. Yeah. All right, Christian, what was your third?
So my number 2 was Hades. So I loved Hades. I spent a lot of time with it, particularly for the type of game that it is, being like a roguelike game. I don't tend to play those very much. Because I like games that are completable and have a story. I tend to like sort of single player games that I can finish. And Hades is a roguelike that you can do that with. It's a roguelike that has a good story. You can finish it. And so I found it really satisfying. And of course, the voice acting is amazing. The writing is great. The art is beautiful. So I have nothing but praise for Hades. It was a real surprise how much I loved it. And good game.
I'm really looking forward to the DLC where they add Hades from Disney's Hercules into it.
Don't see that happening.
That'd be great.
No.
Yeah. You get James Woods to do the voice and everything.
Did James Woods do the voice for the Disney one, did he?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Was my hair out?
Nice. All right, well, let's go in with the big finish then. So, Christian, what was your favourite game of the year? Hit us with it.
Okay, so I know 100% that nobody else is going to pick this game in any of their spots at all. My game of the year is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I think that's well deserved.
Yeah, the reason I picked it as my game of the year is because at the time that I played it, I remember it creating the most joy for me. Like, I had just so much fun playing that game. The combat was like complicated and in a very satisfying way, where once I got to grips with the combat system, I found it very, very satisfying to play. I love the art style of that game. I love I think it's gorgeous game. I love the characters in that. I'd only just played Final Fantasy VII for the first time before that. And so that was all very fresh in my mind. And I don't know, I had a lot of fun playing that game, and more so than any other game this year. And I'm really excited to see where part 2 goes. And yeah, of course, the music I should mention too. I really like the soundtrack for that game, and yeah, it has a very quirky sort of Japanese sense of humor in a lot of ways. A lot of the side quests are very silly. I like the way it expanded on the original Final Fantasy VII. It didn't feel padded to me. It didn't feel like stretched out to me. It felt like it had just been developed into a full standalone game. And yeah, that's why it deserves my game of the year.
It's my number 1 game that I need to finish from this year.
The last thing I'll say about it too is that the game, there's a moment in that game that, like, the honeybee inn sequence, which I can't do justice in describing how silly and fun and amazing that sequence is. And I feel like, especially you, Luke, you need to play the game at least up to that point. That is the point in the game where you can just go like, okay, I understand like what this game is capable of doing as far as like quirkiness goes. And I think you'll appreciate it in a similar way to you like the Yakuza games. Yeah. The silly stuff they do. Yeah.
Actually,
it's fantastic.
Funny mention with regards to that, like Yakuza Like a Dragon came out this year, and I haven't played it yet because I'm actually deliberately waiting to play it on next-gen console instead of playing it on PC, and I don't have the new Xbox, so I've kind of locked that one out for myself until next year when it releases on PlayStation. But I strongly suspect from what I've seen that one might be one I'd be talking about in my top 3 tonight had I played it, because it seems like very much my kind of thing. Yeah, and for all that quirkiness and silliness and stuff as well. Yeah, awesome. Solid pick. I really need to go back and finish that. I do remember the Honeybee stuff from the original, like even as long ago as I played it. But the new lease on life that it's been given with the remake, I'm sure will be a thing.
It's completely different. It's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I need to play it. Like, I've never really cared about Final Fantasy games. I need to play it just because of the fact that, like, it sounds enough of a modernization and quirky enough and fun enough that I really just need to get on it.
Yeah.
Probably next year.
I really do wonder when they're going to do the next part. Like, it could be like another generation away. Shockingly.
Potentially.
Yeah. It's just kind of sad to think about. But anyway, my number one favorite game of the year was not even fucking close. It won by a absolute landslide. And so much so that it's like pretty high up on my favorite games of all time. I'm sure Christian knows what it is. It's not fucking hard to pick. My favorite game of the year is Persona 5 Royal. Yeah. And holy shit, I love this game so much.
I just have to say, before you get into it, Luke, I have to say, it's remarkable that your top 3 for this year did not include Doom.
Yeah.
When I understand why, I just think, like, in the year of our Lord 2020, a brand new Doom game came out and it didn't make your top 3.
Yeah. I know. I really thought hard about that and I feel strange about it. But like, it's not because I didn't enjoy it. It's like I said before, I've got a top 5 list of games this year that is like 13 games long. It's crazy how much stuff I had to cut. Doom got cut. Final Fantasy probably would have made it in there had I actually played through more of it, I'm sure. Stuff like Hades, I had to chop off because, I love Hades. I think it's awesome, but it just didn't make the cut against a couple of those others. But this one was easy. Like, it was not... as soon as we hit March and Persona 5 Royal came out, I had a feeling then, I'm just like... I think Cyberpunk's going to be good, but I don't think anything's going to top this year. Like, just the emotional roller coaster that game took me through. And one of the biggest things for me, which almost always cements a game as like a better game of the year, and this happened when Doom 2016 came out, is the fucking soundtrack. If the soundtrack really hits me hard, like, it's going to take a lot for another game to edge that out when it comes to competing for Mindspace for the rest of the year. The story is gripping. The characters are some of my favorite characters in a video game ever. The journey that they go through is amazing. I'm actually able to look at it from the perspective of what they added with Persona 5 Royal versus what Persona 5 had in it originally, because I can see where the differences are. I never played P5 when it released a few years ago. I think it was 2016, 2017 when the original came out. So Royal's a bit later. But they added a significant amount to the game, so much so that I don't think, counting it as a new game release this year is inappropriate at all. Like, I think it's absolutely, justified. But holy fucking shit. Like, for 100, it took me 120 something hours to get through this game. And I wish I could mind wipe myself and go back and do it again. I loved it that much. It's just amazing. And I will forever be on your back, Matt, until you actually play through that thing. Absolutely.
What is it? It's PlayStation right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the games that you guys are talking about have been PlayStation games. I haven't touched my PlayStation in the last year, which is probably why. But yeah, like, I definitely want to play it. I really do want to play it. It's just unfortunate that Persona 4 Golden is such a slog with the combat that, like, I love the story.
They're miles apart in my mind. Yeah. Like, I know Christian has mad love for P4 because of the nostalgia that he feels for it, but objectively speaking, I think the games are miles apart in terms of what they offer. For new Persona players in particular, I feel. Yeah. Matt, what was your favorite game this year?
Like you, Luke, my favorite this year has been solidified, and I've been waiting for a game to come along and topple it. But no, it's been firmly seated there for an entire year. And just the fact that it got me into a style of game that I never expected to enjoy. And now it has me kind of like curious about the other possibilities. Yes, that's right. My number one game is an anime TD game that I found on Steam. No.
Believe it.
I would have been so proud.
My number one game is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yay!
Because fucking hell, that game has like Adrian, right? Like I find myself kind of judging games based on what sort of impact they've left on me, you know, how much I kind of think about them. And Fallen Order has had an impact. It's made me want to go back and play more Souls-like style games, but you know, nothing like. I think the key thing about Fallen Order that I love so much is that it's so hopeful. Like, you know, it's in this grim situation.
It's new hopeful.
Yeah, it's new hopeful. Yeah, exactly. It's a grim situation, but you know, you're kind of pushing back against this darkness and not surrendering to it. But also like the accessibility and the fact that, you know, I could actually come in there as a player that has not really excelled at all with any sort of Souls-like game, and be able to go, okay, cool, I'm going to play it on normal and go, okay, this is kind of clicked. I kind of get it. Restart the game on a higher difficulty and find myself challenged in a way that I really enjoy. Like, yeah, just brilliant. I fucking love it. And it has, like, I was genuinely disappointed last year that I couldn't include it in my top 3. And it has been sitting, I've got a document that I take notes for the podcast and just across the year, like games that have stood out. And you know how many games that are on that list? 1. It's Fallen Order. It's the only one in the past year that's really stood out to me. And there's such a gap between it and Destiny. It's ridiculous. Like, I've enjoyed Beyond Light, don't get me wrong. But I also realize that 2 years' time, I won't be thinking about Beyond Light, but I will be thinking about Fallen Order. So,
yeah. Hopefully you're thinking about the sequel.
Yes, fuck yeah. Like, if there's a sequel to that game, I'm so all over it. Like, I won't just be day one purchase. I'll be day one purchase and the guy that's standing in line at EB Games getting the fucking version with a gigantic statue. Like, I'll be that guy because I've enjoyed the game that much.
My real hope for Fallen Order, and this is going to mean more to you, I suspect, in a few months' time when you get around to it, is that they find a way to tie in the character of Cal Kestis somehow to some of the expanded universe Star Wars shows that are happening at the moment and that are planned for the future. Yeah,
my Christmas present for myself is getting Disney Plus, so I will be watching that.
Yeah,
yay, Disney!
Super good. Yep. All right. Shall we move on to Adrian's final pick then? Adrian, closing out.
Can I confirm? I think I know the answer to this, but it's only games that came out this year, right?
Or since the last time we discussed party favorites.
Yeah, all right.
Which is where Fallen Order falls in.
Yeah, it's got to be Beyond Light for me then, because 2 words: ice powers. That's it.
Yeah.
Give me the ice powers. That's it. And literally, I just did this while you guys were talking. I looked at my hours played in Destiny. It's now at... Hang on. I moved the thing. Wait. It's at 975 hours.
Holy shit.
And that happened after the transition to Steam.
Yep.
Like...
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I was playing it quite a lot already. So... That's actually a bit scary. So
that's crazy.
I didn't realize I'd played Destiny for 975 hours.
Like, when Beyond Light came out, I doubled my hours in Destiny on Steam. Like, so since it transitioned from the Blizzard launcher, I had like 250 hours on it, and now I have 520. So the fact that you've done 900 is just crazy.
It's insane. And although that's not indicative of just Beyond Light, because that's all of Destiny in the last... however long. Beyond Light, the ice power joke aside, although that is a big part of it, the getting together with you guys, really expanding, really the biggest part is it has literally expanded my circle of friends, which I thought I was kind of set in now in my, almost mid-30s. I figured, like, I've got Christian and that's about it. But they're like, don't play games with. But now there's a few more people. I'm able to do these kind of group activities and gaming, and that has had a big impact on me. So Destiny, and so I guess Beyond Light is my cheats way of putting Destiny as my game of the year, when really I say Beyond Light, but it's all of Destiny. because of that reason. And ironically, Destiny itself, like you say, is a bit of gremlin-gremlin, where there's parts of it that I hate. But overall, I can't argue with the raw numbers.
That's some space science right there. That's like 900 hours of space science.
Yeah, I can't argue that. But I do want to mention, and I don't give a shit because it's our last show, so fuck you if you...
That's why I've been breaking the rules.
Should be down for it. My actual game of the year is Subnautica. Like, I don't care that it didn't come out this year. Subnautica, like... is like Fallen Order for me, Matt. Like playing Subnautica, like just blew me away and has shot to the top of my most favorite games ever. And no other game has done that in the last 5 years, let alone this year. So I have to mention it, even though it didn't come out this year, because I played it this year and it changed. You know, it had a massive impact on me, and I love it. And I want to go back and play it right now, even though I already played through it 3 times.
That's okay. If we were going to pick old games that are our favourite game of the year, then mine would be Persona 5.
Or Fallout 76, favourite game of the year. Favourite game of the year. Find me in the poop
Our lists are all really varied. I think more so than previous years. We've always had different picks when it comes down to it, but this seems more varied than usual.
We had a couple of Destinies, a couple of Hades, but aside from that, pretty
Fallen Order.
Mixed.
We usually are fairly consistent because there's standout games like that are gigantic titles that everyone was already looking forward to, and this year just hasn't delivered, in my opinion. Like there's not been anything that's kind of like been the box office style, summer hit of 2020, right? Like it's all over the place.
The huge Nintendo gap is the most surprising thing for me. Like I think past Animal Crossing is like a black hole.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah.
I just want to add, it technically comes out December 31st, but Binding of Isaac has an expansion coming out called Repentance, and it's adding, in this one expansion, it's doubling the content of the entire game. I read, like, of all expansions that have already come out plus the base game. So it's a huge expansion that's going to drop on December 31st, technically this year, and although I haven't played it yet, it may outstrip 975 hours of Destiny, so I'm just putting that out there.
We'll come back and record episode 238 just for you for that.
I'm a fiend when it comes to Binding of Isaac. So
it will just be a 30-minute long special of Adrian ranting about it. That's what it will be.
Yeah. That's it. Well, I mean, that pretty much brings us to approaching the close of our longest episode yet, without a doubt. Like we've hit about 2.5 hours now, and we'll do by the time we wrap up. So, well done, gents. I think that was a solid effort. We done good.
Is this the part where we play "Time of Your Life" by Gremlin?
No,
right,
like every high school graduation that we've ever been to.
I don't think it's worth dwelling on. Exactly. I did want to mention that I did catch up with one of our former co-hosts, Imogen, during the week, and she wanted to wish us all the best for tonight. Unfortunately, schedule-wise, she couldn't join us. Otherwise, we would have had her here with us. But IRL still being a bit of a bugbear when it comes to finding recording times for people, as it sure will with us next year. I'm sure as we start filling our calendar with different things on the Wednesday night. So it'll be good. But I just wanted to sort of take a soppy soapbox moment and say thanks, guys. Like I feel really blessed to have spent this time with all three of you, and this extends to our previous hosts as well. Like it's been an awesome sort of thing to do for the last 5 years, and doing this podcast and chatting about games, with all the positives and negatives and everything in between, on a weekly or every other week basis for that long has been a fucking fun time. Like I've really, really enjoyed it. It's been a lot of work at times, and I'm sure there's been weeks where we've been wanting to do something else. Any content releases, but we've always found the time to jump on and do this, and I think that every evening that I've spent sort of doing it has been better for it. So, and I really want to thank each of the three of you for putting in the time and effort to sort of be part of that with me as well. So, thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's very sweet of you, but I think that you are the one who deserves clearly most of the thanks. As being the driver of this car, we're just stupid passengers yabbering away in the back seat.
Yeah,
you are the owner and driver of this vehicle. So
we're all the Muppets, and you've got your hand up all our asses.
I must also be the dude.
Enjoy it more than others.
I'm also the dude who has the cars in motion. I'm naked framing at the top of the vehicle as well.
The perfect,
just T-posing as we go.
With your arms on your
and the funny thing is we're sitting in the car. Meanwhile, with your naked, like. Sorry, go, Christian.
I was just going to say it has been great fun to have this opportunity to talk about games. The reason that I was so excited to join the podcast initially was because I had no outlet to talk about games with anybody other than Adrian. And then Adrian, I can't always chew Adrian's ear off about industry stuff because Adrian, frankly, has never cared about industry stuff. So if I'm talking about studio stuff or publisher shenanigans or whatever, that's not Adrian's jam. So it has been really fun for me to have an outlet to just talk about the industry at large and gaming with a broader brush than you can in just a personal conversation every couple of weeks or so. So
yeah,
it's been good fun.
Talked about it. Never again.
I want to pass on a similar sort of soppy soapboxy sort of speech as well, because I've really, Christian aside, because Christian and I go back many years and are best mates. Getting to know Matt, you has been amazing, and like I consider you a good friend now, and I really appreciate being brought on board and getting to meet you and know that as well. And Luke, you and I have known each other for a long time, but getting to do this with you, I've really valued, and adding you to my circle of friends is probably the most valuable outcome to me from this whole podcast. And like Christian said, I'm not very switched in and keyed into the video game world. So for me, the driver's always been hanging out with the three of you every time we've done recording, and being able to be as vulgar and disgusting as possible and get a laugh out of it, and
record it for the record permanently so that we can bring it back and blackmail you if we ever feel that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in a way, made myself very vulnerable and easy to blackmail if I ever become. Christian often likes to say he has plenty of ammo for me if I ever become famous. Like,
I could cancel Adrian in a tweet.
Yeah. Like,
if he becomes famous enough and I get jealous, cancelled.
Yeah, done. It's all over. So, but I do want to really express my thanks to you, Luke, for putting together this. And I have heard from people that do tune in and watch the podcast that the production value really impresses them, and the amount of work that you put in really shows, and your passion. I am very envious of your actual passion and drive, because it's something that honestly I don't have. So I'm just glad to have been in the shadow of that as this vehicle has moved along. So
never in the shadow, always in the blazing headlights, like a fucking stunt deer. Yep.
Strapped naked to the bonnet. Yeah.
T-posing across the bonnet.
T-posing. You're T-posing and I'm doing a reverse. So they're facing the other way.
Absolutely. No, it's been awesome.
I want to say something sappy too, but I can't, because fuck you guys. I'm out. No, it's been great fun. Like, it's fun.
You're game dab.
I'm game dab.
Oh no!
We finally got to the truth.
That's at least a Twitter handle change.
That's going to be the name on Twitter. Game dab.
Game dab.
Fantastic.
No, it's been great fun. And like Christian, talking about industry stuff, I enjoy chatting about that stuff. 2020 has been exhausting with it, and I am looking forward to a break for sure. But yeah, if 100%, I was gonna make the joke earlier, but I'm kind of glad I get to make it now instead. When Adrian was talking about Destiny being his number one game, the fact that it is as good as it is because of the friends that we've got there to play the game with, right? So really, the real winner today is the friendships that we've made at this podcast.
That's the real game of the year.
It really is.
That's the real game of the year. Yeah. It's also the real Gremlin-gremlin award of the year.
It's the gremlins we've made along the way.
It's the gremlins we've made along the way.
So our friend
posing in this car.
Our friend Brendan remarked in our Discord chat earlier, "Are we going to call tonight's episode Party Unloaded?" And I was just like, "No. We're all ensuring our destruction mutually. It's got to be Party Wipe. That's like the note that we have to end on. Team Wipe.
That's a really good final. Yeah.
It's a great name for it.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
that's it.
Awesome.
Well, we do need to end.
The very last
point.
thing I want to say, the very last thing, is anyone for our 7 listeners out there, please never play Fallout 76. If there's one message through my 900 episodes or whatever it is I've done Party Loaded, if there's one thing I want everyone to remember, it's that Fallout 76 is a garbage game, and if you play it, I will come to your house and shit in your pillowcase.
Oh my god, I was literally just thinking those words before you spoke them. Fuck. I know you way too well. That's horrific.
We're all going to turn into Adrian.
Holy shit. Yeah, we've done this too long together. That's my learning from tonight. Holy crap.
I'm trying to think of what my final wish will be to impart to our 7 listeners.
Yeah.
And my final thing to impart to our 7 listeners is please tweet at Konami and tell them to remake Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, because that's the one thing I want most in life. And if I can influence that at all, get that shit done.
Yeah. With our massive platformers, we kill the show and bury it in the ground. That's exactly what we're going to use our last remaining bit of influence for. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Plans for our social media accounts and that kind of stuff. Like we'll absolutely leave them active, particularly to share any of the stuff that we personally might have going on in the future. Matt's got a game that is probably going to come out in the next year or beyond. God knows where.
It'll be next year. So help me God.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we'll definitely be spreading the word about that kind of stuff. I'm planning on working on some game stuff next year too. God knows how fucking long it's going to take me to get anything done, but we'll see. Everybody's sort of social contacts, Twitter handles, I think we should probably just quickly share them around the circle. So, Adrian, where can people follow you?
My Twitter handle is @baritonebelly. That's it, I guess.
Yep. That's the one. Matt?
@GameDadMatt, not GameDab. That'll be later.
Yeah. We'll change that. Christian, where can people find you?
It's @EGCPB. Those letters, EGCPB.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue. You can find me at Luke Retallick. That's 1 T, 2 L's because I'm tall in the middle. I've been wanting to use that for 100 and something episodes. Anyway.
It wouldn't be Party Loaded if we didn't end it with a
All right.
Any sloppy sentimentality we had is gone.
That's it. We're out. We might stream again in future. Keep an eye on the socials, but otherwise we're going to take a long-deserved break. Merry Christmas, everybody. Have a fantastic New Year. Hope you keep enjoying everything great in the world of video games.
Do I get naked now?
Any minute now.
He's doing it.
Good night, everybody.
Cut the stream.
Cut the stream.
No, do it. Luke, no.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.